Yes, guys, you know what time it is. It's your boy David at the Irish Hotspur, Ireland's #1 Spurs fan, bringing you the tactical breakdown from the from the Brighton defeat at the weekend. Not a very good defeat to us, but we're going to go into why we answer the questions, why we couldn't get Harry Kane on the ball in deeper positions, why we struggled to create anything, why we had no shots on target, why Brighton were able to pen us in and the way they did. So we have a lot to go through this evening. And of course, to break it down, we have the one and only Jack Kanicki. Jack, how are you keeping, my man?
Doing okay, Dave. Everybody, like to apologize. We could have done this yesterday. It's just, it's taking a bit of time getting back over to Brooklyn and, maybe just went for a bit of the later plane than I probably should have, Dave. Could have done the tactical breakdown, could have, wrapped up this whole Brighton mess all on Monday, but I'm going to raise my hands. Everybody took a bit too much time on it. So hopefully you enjoy. We put a lot of effort into this one though. So I would say this is the best show to watch in terms of getting the whole understanding of maybe what went wrong against Brighton. And then we can just move on, forget about it, and look forward to Brentford. But doing well, Dave.
Yeah, exactly. Look, and this is it. We do it after every game, win or lose. To see what went wrong, what went right, and so here we are doing it again. It's hard to do it after a loss. Don't get that confused. It's very hard to do it after a loss. But look, you've got to find the answers. You've got to find the answers that people want to know the answers to. But look, let's see what Irish Hotspur Army are in the chat with us. We have RAI says, let us not talk about the past. Let us focus on how Spurs can break Brentford in the next game, ? Just my opinion only. And no, look, man, I really appreciate the feedback, but that's why we do stats with Jack, on Fridays when the game is on Saturdays, so that we can find out how we can break Brentford down and get at them. And then we do the pre-match build-up as well, my man, on before the games. Big up, I really appreciate the feedback, brother. We have light work in the house. Big up light work. Liverpool will beat United. Arsenal will lose to Chelsea, and we'll beat Brentford. Get points at Brentford, are in good form, but we will beat them. Trusting Conte, top four is ours without a doubt. And look, for me, I think there's no need to pull the panic button whatsoever just yet. It's one game. It is one game. Look, there's a lot of factors leading into that game. You had the fact that Conte was out with COVID. Did the players slack off in the preparation this week because Conte wasn't there to oversee it? Bentancur, nobody can tell me that knock that he was carrying during the week didn't affect him going into the game. But then it shows how much little trust Conte does have in Harry Winks, that he didn't want to start him. He still went with Bentancur. How much of a miss Matt Doherty is, and the adjustment that we're going to have to make now that he's gone. So there's a lot of factors leading into this game. But, look, I have no doubts that Conte will put it right for the Brentford game. And we need to beat Brentford. We need to beat Leicester. And these are teams we should be beating. If we want to be playing Champions League next season, these are teams we have to be beating. And right now it's survival of the fittest, and we better be the fittest. But big up, light work. Really appreciate it.
Good to see you, light work.
We have Mick Hermalock. He says, good evening, lads. Come on, you Spurs. Keep our heads up. Heads are always up, my man. Heads are always up. Look, it's only a blip in the radar, man. That's all it is. Look, for me, it's just one game. It's one game. We're after winning we won the last four before that. It's one game. And then we'll hopefully now pick it up and go on another run. And I just don't think Conte will let the same thing happen again next week. I just don't think he's that sort of guy, that sort of manager. And I think maybe, look, the loss might actually do us players the world of good and Conte the world of good, And look, as well, leading up to the game, Harry Kane was away at the Masters. And look, I do not agree with that either. I think, focus on what you're doing, focus on your sport. And, look, maybe the traveling affected him. I'm not sure. But, just don't be going to the Masters. Just stick around, do your training and everything else. And let's get the points on the board. That's what it's about at the end there. But big up, Mick.
Good to see you, Mick.
Yeah, exactly. Big up, Mick. We have Derek Hutchison. He says, the three Spurs boys, big up, Derek. He's put that in. That's the name of Bobby Case and his two kids' channel. It's absolutely brilliant. Big up, Derek Hutchinson. We have Harold T. He says, let's rally Spurs, fam. Big yourself up, Harold T. Good to see you, and I hope you're keeping well. Cody Mack says, we will beat Brentford. Cody Mack, I have no thoughts about it whatsoever. Look, they're on good form. They're doing well at the minute. Obviously you have the Christian Eriksen factor. Look, the only thing, the way I see them hurting us, to be honest with you, is from set pieces. You've got Ivan Toney, you've got some other big boys there. So that's the only way I really see Brentford hurting us, to be honest with you, Cody. Apart from that, I think we should dominate possession and outplay them, to be honest with you.
That back three, I would say, is nowhere near as good as Brentford's, or as Brighton's, I would say, Cody. I mean, that back three of Brentford might be their weak point, I would argue.
Yeah, exactly. Big up, Cody. We have KPV. Big up, KPV. I hope you're keeping my. Come on, you Spurs,
And
absolute
Dave,
legend.
he's also celebrating 3 months as a member, and he's saying, "Yes, lads, how are you doing? Come on, you Spurs and Conte, we trust." Dave, we still need to have our match on FIFA 22. Kyle, sounds like somebody's been avoiding. Sounds like somebody's been hiding. Kyle.
No, look, I'm a very busy boy, Jack. Look, my
Sounds like
you
you've
know
been
the
hiding,
amount
Dave.
the amount of messages and emails and everything else I get on a daily basis, and then putting all these streams together, everything takes a lot of time. But Kyle, do not worry, lad. When you learn to beat clothes into a washing machine, then you can learn to beat me on FIFA, my man. You got to beat clothes into the washing machine first, lad. But big up, Kyle. Look, we will get that game going. Big yourself up, my man. We have the Bolton Dude. He says, greetings, everyone. Big up the Bolton Dude. I hope you're keeping well. It's good to see you in. Hopefully you're having a good day. Wembley 1 is in with us as well. Evening, boys. Any bets? Ericsson grabs the winner on Saturday. I'm not even going to think about that, my man. If that happens, I'm going to be so pissed off. In fact, if that happens, you probably won't see me for a day or two. I'm going to be that annoyed. I'm not messing. It's going to make my blood boil. So, look, I'm not even going to think about that Wembley 1. Come on now. Can't be putting them vibes in here, my man. Big up, Wembley. We have Welsh Gal. Good to see you. She says, big up, David and Jack. Come on, you Spurs. We can do this. Greetings to all in the Harris Army and the Flat Cap Army. Big up, Welsh Gal. I hope you're keeping well. Good to see you. We have Oliver Freeman. Hi, everyone. Hope all is good. Ollie, I don't know whether you're listening to us in the van on the way home. I know you like to do that, put on various Spurs channels while you're driving around, working and that. But big up, Ollie. I hope you're having a good time, my man. And look, sorry you couldn't get the victory when you traveled over there with the Godfather, Mr. Brady. But look, you just gotta park it there, Oliver. No more games for you until the end of the season. You're putting bad luck on us. You're not allowed to go to next season. I'm putting the shackles on you. I'm putting the word out at the ports, at the exit ports, so that you can't get out anywhere, whether it's boat or plane, my man. Big up, Oliver. Good to see you in, brother. We also have Anthony Gray. He says, we look tired, lackluster, slow. Conte only watched training from afar. Could his coaching team possibly overdid the training that last week? Now Conte back. That'll be it.
Interesting.
I don't know about. Do you know what? I don't know about overdoing it. To be honest with you, I just think we just had no answers from the off. The way Brighton set up, and we're going to get into it. The way Brighton set up, whether it was long ball or trying to feed Harry Kane or trying to get forward, we had no answers. And I actually think it comes down to maybe a lack of tactical preparation more than being overworked during the week. Jack, what would you say to Anthony Gray?
I don't know, Dave. I kind of agree with you. I think I can't really put it any better than you did, but to maybe give a bit of credit to Anthony here, Dave, I actually think it's not a bad theory. If you're just coming up with theories, if you're just trying to come up with sort of explanations, out of the blue, I feel like this is actually quite a clever one that Anthony's come up with. One that I actually couldn't feel like I would come up with myself, just because when you think about it, Dave, with maybe Brighton had, maybe had Conte maybe been closer with the players, he could have maybe told them, listen, this is what I kind of saw and Wepu doing. This is what I maybe saw, the likes of McAllister, the positions they were taking up. Maybe he could have said what that Caicedo guy had been doing recently. So perhaps maybe a few instructions were missed, with the players. Maybe, I don't know if it was the overworking, like you said, but I think Anthony's onto something where it's just even the fact that Conte wasn't able to be as in depth, maybe, and as personal with his players. Could be maybe somewhat of could play a factor. I don't know, but I think it's a good speculation regardless, even if it's not true.
No, 100%. And look, what I'll also add to that is that, look, there's no doubt about it. Brighton outworked us. I mean, even working back to get tackles in, working to go forward, to flood bodies forward, overloads. Brighton just outworked us on the day, completely outworked us. So maybe Anthony Gray, maybe that could be the case, actually. But there is that, look, just Brighton outworked us. I think what Brighton done to us compared to other teams over the last few weeks is that Brighton could continue what they were doing for 90 minutes, and the tactics allowed them to do that, rather than the way Newcastle or Aston Villa approached it, where their tactics allowed them to do it for 45 minutes. But big up, Anthony Gray. Big yourself up, my man. Para Miguel Escobardo, big up Jacko and Davide. Vamos Spurs, big up Para all the way from Lagos. I hope you're keeping well, sir. We have Coach TPM. Look, as I see it, we were always going to lose one game. Now I believe we won't lose the Liverpool game because we want to prove ourselves. Conte is choosing the right games to lose, I think. Look, I don't think there's any right games to lose, my man. But one thing I will say about this Liverpool game is, look, first of all, I want to get this out there. Look, We do not have a good record at Anfield. I mean, we are absolutely abysmal when it comes to Anfield. It's one of the grounds where we just do not take points from whenever we go there. But if you take yourself back to the earlier on part of the season, if we could get a point out of that game, which we should have won with the chances we had, with a midfield three and two of them consisted of Winks and Dele Alli, I would definitely think Conte would probably have the tactics to maybe get us a result at Anfield. Jack?
I feel like if anybody's going to get a result at Anfield, Dave, it's definitely going to be Conte, just because he was so close to getting it at home. So close. So, yeah, coach, honestly, it's good to have a coach in the house. Coach, I'll tell you, if anybody, it's going to be Conte. I'm with Dave, though. Like, really, like, I know I've said free hit before. I've said no expectations, but like, I really truly mean it this time. And I know that's a bit sad to say, but it's just how I feel. I'm with Dave. It's just always been a bit of a place for us that's just been impossible. But considering what Conte did last time out to Klopp and Karen and his whole system there, makes me think that maybe if anybody would do it, it would be Conte. Big up, coach.
Yeah, big up, coach. There's definitely the potential there anyway, my man. We have Miss Yowati. I've heard that Bente is injured. Does it mean Winksy for the Brentford game?
I heard he was injured before the last game. I didn't know if it got made any worse by the last game.
No, I haven't heard of it being made worse. Now, look, unless the guy has an inside info, I'm not sure. But look, we need Bentancur for the running. If he is not fully fit and ready for the Brentford game, we cannot put him out there and have another MIA performance, because, I mean, he was just non-existent through that whole game. We cannot afford to have that again. So if he's not right, you're going to have to do something. Is Harry Winks the answer? Look, for me, I genuinely don't think so. I mean, look, the guy is as erratic as a 17-year-old in midfield who's stepping into the senior team. So I'd much rather give someone else a go in there. But look, it's one of them. He probably will play him because he's a senior player and he's 26 and, you know, this and that. But look, I just pray Bentancur doesn't be injured, because if Bentancur is injured, if Winksy has to step into that midfield, it's going to be a very long day at the office. A very long day, my man.
Yeah.
Big yourself up. We have Rifled. He says, big up, David and Jack. Is Bentancur injured? Is he okay? Look, I haven't heard anything about him being extra. Like, I knew coming into the game, I heard it during midweek that he did have a knock. And he did have a knock coming into the game. And that's why we asked the question in the pre-match build-up. But I haven't heard of it being worse, to be honest with you. I haven't heard anything extra on it. Look, we'll have to wait and see what the story is when it comes out. But
fingers crossed, Rifled. Fingers crossed.
I hope not, because you look at Winks, he came off the bench. Actually, no, we'll get into that at the end, but find out at the end why I hope not, man. Big yourself up. Big up, brother. We have Bobby K in the house. Big up, David, Jack, and everyone in the chat. Come on, you Spurs. Big up, Bobby K. And everybody, please check out the Three Spurs Boys. I was on it there over the weekend, giving my breakdown of the game and stuff like that. So please do check it out. Big up, Bobby K. I hope you're keeping well, and big the two boys. And congratulations to Jay as well. I think it's Jay. I think that's how you pronounce it. It's Jay or Jay, but I'm going to go with Jay. And he won his first football trophy there over the weekend. So,
whoa! It only starts there, Bobby. He's got the winning mentality. I can already taste it. He's got the winning mentality. Once you get that, that taste of the trophy, you can't stop from there. Big up, Bobby.
Big up, Bobby. You're my man. I hope you're keeping well. We've got Carl Higgins says, big up. The stairs, massive, big love. Big up, Carl Higgins. I hope you're keeping well, my man. Good to see you in. Who else have we got here? We've got Ian Ferguson. Big up, Ian. I hope you're keeping well, brother. He says, hopefully Liverpool can do us a solid today. And look, that's why we're streaming at 6 today instead of later on this evening, because we want you all to be able to watch United get bet by Liverpool, So hopefully that happens tonight. But big up, Ian Ferguson. Appreciate that, my man. Who else have we got here? Make sure we're not missing anybody. Want to make
big
sure.
Big up, Ian. Sorry, I just was looking on screen now. Big up, Ian. Good to see you, my man.
Big up, my man. We've got Dermot. He says, Big up Dermot from Tottenham Tantra Gold. And by the way, your thumbnails are looking awesome, by the way, lately.
Yes,
Absolutely
sir.
quality. He says, we will be okay. We had a dip. We are the mighty Tottenham Hotspur. The light at the end of that tunnel is bright, so don't worry, lads. Top four is on its way. Trust in the Don. That is Conte. Come on, you Harris Army. Come on, you Flat Cap Army. Come on, you Spurs. Absolutely love that. Everybody should be putting in the come on, you Harris Army. Come on, you Flat Cap Army. Come on, you Spurs. We're trying to create a Tottenham cult here. So everyone needs to put that in. Let people know that we are one of the biggest armies out there, and that we're, so everybody has to put that in. When you put that in, you remember the army. Big up, Dermot.
There you go,
You keep
Dermot.
it
Leading
well,
by
brother.
example. Leading by example.
Big up, big up. Who else have we got? We've got Moondog in the building. He says, "Good evening, Jack. Did your parcel is taking forever?"
Moondog, I've been waiting for it. I mean, every single day I walk into the lobby, before I walk upstairs to the apartment, I look for it every single day. I mean, there was that period, Moondog, a while back, when I was over in London, of course, for the game. I really doubt it arrived over that time period. But if you have the tracking number and it still says it's been on the way, then I'm waiting, my man. But let me know. Send me that tracking number, even, Moondog, just so that you can collaborate. You have my email and everything, Moondog. Let's communicate, my man. And I'm with you, my man. I have no idea why it's taken so long. The only explanation I could have is I was gone for that week period at one stage.
What ones did you go for, Jack? Romero Højbjerg?
I think he surprised me probably with the Højbjerg is what I would imagine. Dave, I mean, what would I order? I think it's going to be the Højbjerg is probably what I ordered. But I think whatever Moondog made for me, I know I'm going to be absolutely in tears over it because I know it's going to be beautiful.
You must be jealous that I get to give my Harry Kane a kiss goodnight every night. And
kind of, yeah, to be fair, Dave. I really am.
Part on your wall, lonely, just with a light above it, just waiting for the Højbjerg to arrive.
That's how it is, Dave, though. Moondog had to send it to the Don first, then he sends it to the disciples after that. So hopefully, Moondog. But like I said, email me the tracking number, or just get to me via email, Moondog, because there was that 1 week period, like I said, where I was out of the apartment, out of New York entirely. Something could have happened then, but I really feel like I doubt it. So let me know, my man.
Yeah, big up, Moondog. Hope you're keeping well, brother. It's good to see you in, buddy. We've got Oliver Freeman. He says, Dave, I am definitely staying away for the rest of the season. Then go again next season. We'll be third time lucky. Yeah, no, look, I like if I have to, I'll report you for a fake crime just to get you arrested, Oliver. You are not to leave the vicinities of Portlaoise whatsoever, or of Laois whatsoever. You are not allowed to leave that county whatsoever, and I'll make sure of it. If I have to, I'll send some of the Harris Army up onto the borders of the county to patrol to make sure you're not getting out, Oliver. You're not leaving, my
Just
man.
when you thought you got past through customs, Oliver. Just when you thought you got through customs, there's Harris Army customs you got to get through, Oliver.
Big up, Ollie. We have Paul. Good evening, lads. Hope you're both okay. We are all good, my man. I hope you're keeping well, Paul. Big yourself up. Who else have we got here? Cody Max says, Winks Rex David's brain can barely utter his name like Voldemort. Look, the guy, do you know what it is, Cody? It's because I've been on him for so long now. And it took me a while to get people to see past. So he's a homegrown lad.
It took a long time.
All, and it took me so long to get people to see past that. And now that we've exposed him for what he really is, and I only do this because I want the club to be better. That's the only reason why I do this. I'm like to point out things that we need to be better here. We have to, if we want to be winning trophies and all, this guy is not the answer. We cannot be keeping him around. We have to look for a new homegrown Tottenham boy who's come through the ranks that we can get behind, because this guy is well past his sell-by date. I mean, he's 26,
Yeah.
Usually you give them till about 23, 24, and if they're not good enough, you fuck them off, just like we done with Tom Carr. But we don't seem to want to do that with Winksy. But big up, Cody. Hope you're keeping well, my man. Who else have we got? Make sure we're not missing anyone. Andre Smith's in the building. Big up, man. I hope you're keeping well. Good to see you, Andre. We also have Eaton Spurs. Did you see we are being linked with Tielemans? What do you think? My man, we have been linked with Tielemans since he was 16 years of age, playing in Europe with Anderlecht. This is how long we've been linked with this guy. And since I first seen him at that age playing, I've always wanted this guy. And you know what? I gave up hopes as soon as he moved to Leicester, to be honest with you. I was raging that we let him go to Monaco. I believe we should have been, I think it was Monaco he went to.
Yeah, you're spot on.
I believe we should have been first in there. I believe we should have took him in at the time. We didn't. And then he ends up at Leicester, which pisses me off. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, we've been linked with this guy since 16 years of age. We've been following, we've been tracking him. And all of a sudden now Leicester has took him off us. And, if this guy was wanted to come to the Premier League, why weren't we first in there? You see what this guy does for Leicester. He's an absolute brilliant player. I really like this guy. I think he gives us that. He can take shots from long range and score them. So he gives us that option outside the box. He has a good pass about him. He's box to box. He's got great fitness levels. And he's a good passer of the ball. I really like Youri Tielemans. And he takes no shit. He can look after himself as well. I really like this guy, and I would love to see him come to Tottenham, Jack.
Yeah, I mean, Tielemans, Dave, is a kind of that deep lying playmaker we've more or less been asking for. I know Bentancur has been sort of that as well, but I feel like Bentancur is so good, David, that he's kind of a bit of a hybrid of the two because he can kind of get stuck in like Højbjerg can, but he can also maybe turn and pick up the ball on a half turn, maybe like other midfielders can't. I feel like Tielemans is exactly what we've been looking for. I know for a long time, Dave, we were looking at like Brozovic as maybe the perfect, most ideal deep line playmaker. You could make that argument that Tielemans is sort of that Premier League proven version of that. You could make that argument. And so I feel like Tielemans, to anybody to turn their nose up at Tielemans, I feel like just watch the guy again. He's always looking for the ball, Dave. He's demanding the ball at times. He likes to be able to spread the passes. He can play it on the floor, kind of like a Harry Winks can, to be able to link things up, but he can also spray the passes like Harry Winks can't, which is one of my favorite things about Tielemans. So, and also a good long shot on him, pops up with some goals as well. So I think Tielemans, Dave, I mean, it's a no-brainer for me.
Yeah. No, same here for me. I think, look, if this guy is available and wants to come to Tottenham, we've got to go and get him, my man. Big yourself up. We've got Angel Matos in the house. Big up, Angel. I hope you're keeping well, brother. It's good to see you. Says Brighton simply executed the low block. It's the same plan that beats us every time. Teams that play to win the game get carved up by our front three. We need to figure out how to break teams down. Look, do you know what? It wasn't exactly a low block. What Brighton actually done was very, very clever, and we will show you. Do you know what? When I was looking at the game, I just remember looking at it, and I was like, there was not the space in the middle. There wasn't the passing options to be able to get the ball into the middle, and I thought that was because Brighton blocked up the middle very well. And there was an element to that, and there was an element to sort of like a low block, but the way they stopped us getting Harry Kane and our front three into the game was very, very, very clever. And it was all about angles. Jack, anything you want to say to Angel?
Yeah, I mean, we don't want to give away too much right away, but I don't really know if it was much of a low block, if you really ask me, Angel. I think maybe we could be probably right about one thing. I don't know. Like maybe, I think you probably might be pointing out something that maybe I just didn't notice. I'll be honest, Angel, but to be fair, I feel like what Brighton really did was they actually just pressed whoever was on the ball, and whoever was on the ball just found it really, really hard to pick their head up and be able to find a pass that we normally like to make. Spurs, we play really direct. We play very quick passing. Conte, the way that he likes to play, it's not really like we're kind of passing the ball around, wasting time, trying to pick our moment. That's probably why we were even so frustrated, if you ask me, is because we're not used to that sort of style. Like we were almost playing like Man City kind of do, where it's just like picking, really carefully, just being very complacent and everything. That's not really how Conte's ever been here. We've always been trying to play very dynamic, vertical sort of kind of passing. And it's just, we weren't able to do it because Brighton kept pressing every single man on the ball, which made that sort of vertical, kind of easy, direct pass out of the question. And that's my opinion on Hill, but you might be right. You might be pointing out something I didn't notice.
Big up, Anhad. I hope you're keeping well, brother. Dermot, you can be... Yeah, I'll let you be the 2-star general, my man. You could be the 2-star general. Dermot, you could be whatever you want. You could be the leader of the army, my man. You could be the leader. Big up, Dermot. We have Moondog. He says, Jack, give it a couple of weeks and I'll send it again.
No. Moondog, unless something's happened to it on the way, again, just tell me about what's happened via email, my man. Tell me about what's happened, because I really feel like I doubt that I missed it while I was over in London. I really feel like I doubt I missed it over that time period, because that mean it would have came like lickety split right away. So I have a feeling maybe something might be just happening with that, that freight line, kind of playing all the way over here to New York. Maybe something's happened, but just email me, my man. Just email me.
Big up, Moondog.
Really appreciate support though, Moondog.
Big up.
And I'm salivating over the Højbjerg coaster. I really am, my man.
Jack will need a night off alone with that when it comes, lad. So you big up. Paul Mansbridge says, hi, lads. Lack of movement and slow passing cost us against Brighton. Definitely a big element to that as well. A massive element to that, my man. Just kind of like a lack of plan B. Plan A didn't work, and there was no plan B, my man. We were just lost, to be honest. Lost that sea without a boat, to be honest with you, my man. Kuva99 says, big up, lads. Insert comedy stuff here. Just put your thumbs up, Dave, and move the F along swiftly. Big up, Kuva. It's good to see you in, brother. It's good to see you in. I hope you're keeping well, my man. We have Harrison Brownlee. Come on, you Spurs. I love this channel. Haven't been on in a while. Big up, Harrison. I'm glad you enjoyed the channel, my man. And it's great to have you back. Big yourself.
Harrison is one of my favorite names, too. I love that name. Big up, Harrison.
It is a good one. Big up, Harrison. My man, I hope you're keeping well. But look, guys, we are going to get into it. We're going to break this down. So, guys, make sure you do smash that like button. Basically, smash that like. Really helps the channel. It really helps us out in terms of YouTube algorithm. And it just basically means what it does is it puts our video out to more and more Spurs people out there. And hopefully helps us then on our way to try and dominate YouTube and take it over. So that'd be a massive help. Also, smashing that subscribe button really boosts the numbers, which also really helps us. So that'd be awesome if you're new, that you could smash that subscribe. And guys, feel free to get your super chats in, because it is a great way to support myself and Jack at everything we do here. We are trying to make this our full-time job. We are trying to make it, basically, look, I wanted to play for Spurs or wanted to do something in and around the club. I can't do that with my life. So this is the next best thing to achieving my dream in my life. So guys, you can help me with that. So feel free to get your thoughts, questions, or anything that's in with a super chat. And it's just a great way to support us. But do not worry. If you're not in a position, we realize it is a big, bad, and tough world out there. Gas prices have gone up. Electric prices have gone up. We understand this all. At least just get your comments in below, and we'll bring them up as we go along. But look, Jack, we'll hand it over to you. Let's break it down, my man.
Let's break it down, Dave. And I feel like,
sorry,
bit crazy there, Dave. Match stats for the game, everybody. Total shots, Brighton had 12, but they had 5 on target. Well, we had no shots on target. Like I think even Chris said last night, Nuno ball certainly was on everybody's mind. Possession, 52% to Brighton, 48% to Spurs. I actually think that was sort of identical to the last time we actually came up against them as well, I think, unless I'm mistaken. But it's not surprising that maybe Brighton do finish with a bit more possession. Big chances created, 1 for Brighton and 1 for Spurs. The big issue with Spurs, though, is that we missed that big chance and Brighton didn't. The big chance that they had, they put away. The big chance we had, we missed. And Steven Bergwijn, he's been in incredible form for us. The fact that he even got that position in the first place, credit to him. But I would say, like, that was the big chance, I believe, that they are referring to, that Steven Bergwijn chance towards the end of the game that he definitely should have put away. Passes in the opposition half completed, 305 to Brighton, 174 to Spurs. I think that's sort of a stat, Dave, that really kind of shows a bit of domination to a degree, because if you are able to complete lots of passes, almost double what maybe the other team does in the opponent's half, does really maybe say a lot about, how the game really went. And then passes into the final third completed. Brighton had 143 where we had 85. I think those bottom 2 stats, Dave, are maybe the most damning.
No, look, all the stats are damning, Jack. I mean, look, they had 12 shots compared to our 5. Yeah, that's like that. We are the home team here. Looking at this, we look like the away team, but we were the home team here. That is not good enough. Now, look, we did say in the pre-match build-up that it is about right that Brighton do average about 12 shots a game anyway. But it's the lack of big chances that they create with them shots. But we didn't do anywhere near enough to kind of stop them shots coming in. And we're going to get on into a little while on why Brighton gets so many shots per games, but not necessarily in great positions. And then you look at ours 5. I mean, it's a damn indictment of we've just failed to create. You're talking last few weeks where we've been getting 19, 20 shots on goal, 17. We're being in double digits. We're 5 on this one. They completely nullified. No shots on target at home. I don't care who you're against. That is absolutely not good enough. Yep. It's appalling. It's shocking. And it's a damn indictment of how little answers we had to what Brighton done to us. We just had no answers whatsoever. And the shots on target show you that. Possession, again, Look, I'll be honest with you. I actually thought that would have been a bit higher. I thought, looking at the game, that Brighton may have had a bit more possession than us, a lot more. It turns out they only had a bit more. But you look at
It was
what they've
probably
done with
because of
them.
those passes in the opposition half that made you think that, Dave, right? Because the
Yeah,
fact that they had so much of the ball in our half made you probably think that they had a lot more possession than they actually did.
no, 100%. And then you also compare their possession to shots on target and total shots. Look what they've done with their possession compared to what we done with our possession. They created chances, we did not. It just goes to show that, again, the lack of answers, the lack of creativity. Big chances created. I mean, both ironically came right at the very end of the game. There's 89, 90 minutes. They took it. Steven Bergwijn had one literally about a minute later. For me, look, I thought the guy could have took a touch, to be honest with you. He had all the time in the world to take a touch. He went for it first time, and then, look, he shanked it. It is what it is. These are the most two damning, though, Jack. You're correct here. The passes in opposition half, passes in final third. It just goes to show where their possession was compared to where our possession was. A lot of our possession was in our own half, passing across the back, trying to get out, And look, I mean, I failed match, and obviously it's not half, but they almost have as half more, more or less double than what we have in terms of passes in our half and passes into our final third compared to theirs. So it just shows that a lot of our possession was actually in our own half, passing across the back line compared to theirs. And Jack, I'm not surprised because they were well able to work the ball out from their own half. They didn't have to try and go long or look for answers. They had an extra man all game long to be able to get out of their own half. And that's ultimately what led to them having more possession in our own half and the passes and more passes in our final third because they had the options all game long compared to we didn't. In fact, when we went into their half, they almost just took the ball off us and came back at us.
No, Dave, you broke that down perfectly. The only thing I could add to that is maybe, I don't know if this saves us a bit here, Dave, but Brighton, I would say, actually play. I know I kind of said something about the word complacency earlier, Dave, that kind of connects to maybe how, Man City play. It's where they always seem to have options available to them. Whatever pass, is available forward, there's always that safety pass available. There's always that kind of, that dropout sort of pass in case, the passes in there. Whereas other teams, they don't really play that way. Other teams, they make it so that that sort of direct pass is always on, or that direct pass, they'll take that risk even if it isn't there. And I feel like Brighton, Dave, are one of those teams kind of similar to Man City where they will kind of pass you to death. And to be honest, most times when I've watched Brighton, Dave, they are one of the most boring teams to watch, I think, in general. And the same thing with Man City at times, sometimes a very boring team to watch. And that would maybe inflate those stats, you might say. Passes in the opposition half are probably inflated by how many safe passes, how many sideways passes they make in our own half. To be fair, though, Dave, credit to them. Now it's time to give credit to them. The fact that they can keep possession in the opposition half is impressive. But to say that those passes that they were making in our opposition half were dangerous passes is not the case. Because if you really do look back at the game, everybody, I know Brighton did have 12 shots. I know they did have 5 on target. But honestly, I mean, Hugo still could have kicked out a deck chair really and just sat there because they weren't really threatening the goal in any way whatsoever. And the chances they even created were nothing and null and void whatsoever. I think, too, the fact they only created one big chance, and I think their XG was also 0.7. I know those passes in the final third, those passes in the opposition half are really embarrassing for a club like ours, but it's also just the way that Brighton play. And I think they play very complacent, safe sort of style while pressing you really high up the pitch, but still very complacent and safe, which is maybe, David, why it's almost close to double our numbers.
Yeah, and look, you're absolutely spot on. And what I will add to that is look, they did look. You look back over the whole game, they probably had 2 or 3 shots inside our own box. That was it. The rest all came outside the box. But when you look at the possession, the reason why they ended up winning the game 1-0 compared to us is because a lot of their play was in our half. Although the passes is pointless, when it's in our half, we're under pressure. And it's as simple as that. And they just kept the pressure on and kept it building and building and building until we collapsed and we made that mistake. And then they got their rewards from it. Whereas if we would have played in their half, that would have been us that would have went and nicked this game at the weekend. So although they don't create an awful lot, what it was doing, and I agree with you. I think Brighton are very, very boring. I was almost falling asleep during that game, to be honest with you. They're a very, very boring team. but it's almost designed like that, just so
Effective.
that you do have that moment to switch off,
It's
and they
effective.
will capitalize on it.
Yeah, it's what stifles you, Dave. It's also the possession play that they make. It stifles you. It takes sting out of the game. It
Mm.
actually makes teams actually not want to play football to a degree. Probably makes them actually quite desperate, the way that they actually keep the ball in possession. So it's actually probably why Brighton, Dave, they also, I think, the majority of the games they win are usually by a 1 or 2 goal
Yeah,
margin, anyways. So it's just as part of their style. It sincerely is. And I know they're kind of last season known as the Kings of XG. What they really, I think, are kind of the Kings are is kind of taking the stings out of game. Like they
yeah,
really do know how to, kind of pass a team to death. They know how to like, win the ball away from you, but not, immediately go for the throat. They'll almost win the ball back from you and then just kind of pass you to sleep right afterwards. And I feel like it is kind of an effective style. If you are a team of their size, Dave, if you're a team of their caliber, it is kind of maybe an effective way to go about things because it
mhm,
really does make bigger clubs, teams like ours who like to play very direct, like to play, a bit more aggressive, really frustrates teams like ours. So I
yeah.
think it is an effective style.
And I would love to, I would love to get a stat up and see how many of their goals actually come in like the last 5 minutes of games, 5+ injury,
Yeah.
because the way they play, it's almost that boring that they know, like, they will switch off eventually, because come 85 minutes, if it's still a 0-all game, most teams will think, if they haven't had the answers against Brighton, oh, we'll just take the 0-all and get out of here. And they switch off. And it's ultimately what we done. We switched off that goal. It was uncontested.
Yeah,
We
it
just
was.
switched off. We thought we were going to get the point, get out of here. And it'd be very interesting to see how many of their goals have come from 85 minutes onwards by playing this style.
I mean, next time, Dave, I'll provide you with that on the pre-match build-up, my man. Add
That
to
was
the
my job.
already
I was too lazy. I was too lazy today. I should have when I got it.
the bank of questions are already too good. Might as well just add a bit more there. But just to compare the 11s really quick, everybody, as you saw, I think it was more or less a version of a 3-5-2 for Brighton. You could say that really Mwepu and McAllister were sort of kind of like false nines, at times. Like they really did just drop really deep in order to pick up the ball. But as well, I feel like there are those sort of players that, were kind of leading the press from the front. They kind of went for almost a number 9-less kind of front three here or front two here, Dave. They didn't go for Mopai. They didn't go for Welbeck. They didn't go for, I think Aaron Connolly might have left, but it's kind of interesting, Dave. They didn't go for the lineup that maybe everyone expected. They had Caicedo in the middle, who I've seen a lot of Brighton fans comment that that's been like sort of the revelation in the last few games. Caicedo has been, so maybe that's someone who we could probably take a look at in the future when we do come up against them. And then it was a back three of Veltman, Dunk, and Cucurella. I actually really thought that Veltman and Cucurella had really good games for me, because I think what they do differently compared to maybe other, I mean, they're kind of unconventional center backs, let's be honest, but in the case of Cucurella and Veltman, they have that recovery pace and they have that sort of agility so that
Mm.
when players like Son or Kane maybe turn them or spin them, in case they do get spun, they can kind of just recover and be able to get back in front of the player. Whereas maybe someone like a Lewis Dunk or maybe someone like before, like we saw with Dan Burn with Newcastle or Tyrone Mings, once they get spun, they're kind of beat, they're kind of dead and they'll just take you out, for a yellow card. Whereas someone like a Cucurella or a Veltman can kind of just get stuck in and be able to, make that tackle. They won't be able to bully you. They won't be able to push you around, but they'll kind of be that annoying little pest that's always there, just being able to take the ball away from you. They did do Trossard again out wide as a left wing back, which I actually didn't see coming. I felt like they were going to go with something a bit different, maybe put Trossard up front. But again, that proved to be effective. And then Pascal Gross, the man with the biggest furrowed eyebrow in the entire football world, also, I think, had a really good game. I think he also had the most shot creating actions out of anybody in the entire pitch. I think he had like 9 or 8 shot creating actions, Pascal Gross. So maybe someone in that lineup that maybe also had a secretly really good game actually for Brighton that day.
Yeah, look, for me, you look at the lineup there. Look, what they did do very well is they did not give us the space to play the balls in behind, like what we've been able to do in recent weeks with getting Sonny in behind or stuff like that. They actually did keep that back three very, very low. But when we did get in, and Jack, like you mentioned, there Veltman and Cucurella, and two examples of that were during the game. One where Son flicked the ball over to Harry Kane, and Harry Kane chested it down, was ready to volley it, and Cucurella came in and nicked it off him. And another one where the ball was put through, I think it was again on Harry Kane, actually. He first touch, perfect, right out of the feet, and then Veltman cuts across and was able to get that tackle in. But the reason why they were able to do that is because we didn't have the space in behind properly to be able to gain that extra couple of yards like we usually would have. So they kept very, very low. So when the ball was put in over, they were already on the turn, ready to recover. So they've done that expertly well. And then, yeah.
Let's move on, everybody, into maybe where the areas that were attacked. Brighton, 39% of their attacks went down the right-hand side, whereas 45% went down the left-hand side. You actually could look at that as actually being a bit even, to be fair, because normally it's with most teams that come up against us, Dave, it's like they really target that left-hand side, their left-hand side or our right-hand side. They really like to target. But when you really kind of look at it, it kind of is a bit more even than maybe other teams. Aston Villa, I think, Dave, it was something like 49% or, was like down, Emerson's side or down Doherty's side at the time. Whereas, Brighton actually mixed it up a bit more. They actually barely went through the middle. So that notion that they maybe overflooded the middle of the park, is maybe sort of true and maybe how the lineups look. But if you actually look at maybe where the players position themselves, Brighton just decided to overload and overplay whatever wing they decided to attack. Spurs, on the other hand, 29% of our attacks went down the left-hand side, whereas 48% of our attacks went down the right-hand side. Dave, this is a bit of a question here. Why do you think we're kind of favoring going down the right-hand side? Because I know everybody says, oh, we always get targeted. Emerson's side always gets targeted. But that's not really the case here. I think what's more the case here is that Spurs, in fact, were trying to build most of their play out the right-hand side. Why was that?
Well, I think if you look back over the last couple of weeks, Jack, you look at most of our goals, a lot of them have all been started down that right-hand side. And that's what we like to do. You look back at the tactics that we've been doing the last few weeks. When you talk about the left-hand side, we're always talking about Sonny drifting in, taking up that striker role and getting in behind. You're always talking about Reguilon bombing in and being that extra man when Son cuts inside. And it's definitely a ploy by Conte that we do build up down that right-hand side. You think back to the goals, some of the goals we've scored over the last few weeks, a lot of them have been built up down that side. It's no coincidence that Kulu has come in and has six assists in 10 games, also plays down that right-hand side. It's just the way we build up. I think it's an area that Conte believes we're better on building out from the back with. I think that's definitely the case, probably with Doherty in there rather than Emerson. I think maybe with Emerson there, he's going to have to maybe look to switch it up and do something a little bit different. But I just think Conte thinks that's our stronger side and that's our better side. Yeah. And plus the way he has Son, plus he has to account for Harry Kane dropping deep. So when Harry Kane was dropping deep, especially because he done this under Nuno, right? He dropped deep under Nuno, but what was happening is no one was filling that striker void. So when Harry Kane was dropping deep and getting us up the field, we could never put the ball into the box because we had no one in there. We could never put the ball in behind because we had no one making that run. So what he done is, Conte is clever. He says, okay, so Kane, you drop deep. Son, you come across. You make your run. Time your run's perfect. The amount of balls you're going to get put in behind. We've seen it against West Ham, Newcastle, Aston Villa. Many repeats of the exact same movements and exact same goals. And they all started from the right back position. Right back, midfield, back out to the right. Then into Harry Kane. Harry Kane gets it, turns, balls in behind. And it's just the way we build up, the way we create these chances. And I think, look, maybe Brighton probably copped onto that, to be honest with you, because they blocked up that side very, very well.
I wouldn't be surprised because he's also come up against us 2 other occasions, Harry Potter, Dave. So, I mean, like, I think, who was it? I think someone put up in the comments, like, if he hadn't figured it out, maybe how Spurs, maybe like to play by then, I would say he certainly should not be rated as a manager. So maybe this was a bit of a moment where, you have to maybe tip your hat sort of to Graham Potter. But then again, he's had 3 or 4 attempts, at it so far this season, to try to get the best of Spurs. So he's finally maybe figured out a good tactic against us. These are the average position. Yeah. Sorry, Dave.
Yeah, sorry, just quickly, just something else that crossed my mind there is as well. I think a lot of the reason is why we kind of build up from the right-hand side and down the right-hand side is Romero's 10 times better and more composed on the ball than what Ben Davies is. I definitely think that has a massive part to do with it as well.
Yeah, to be fair, and even with Reguilón, as we might break down later, isn't also the most, composed on the ball either. So maybe you would rather just have one guy that's really confident in possession where the other one isn't. Apologies for the camera. But everybody as well, like the average positions that we're going to show here for Spurs, we do have, again, the big difference in this one is that Reguilón, Dave, because is not out wide. He used to play as like sort of a left winger for us, but he's not keeping the width this one. It's weird. It's almost like Emerson is more or less keeping the width and Kulusevski are kind of keeping the width. Sonny, as always, kind of playing through the middle, almost on top of Harry Kane. What's a bit different here as well is that Bentancur and Højbjerg have actually dropped a bit deeper than they normally have as well. And they're actually sitting a lot closer to Dyer, which kind of explains, that sideways passing that we were complaining about a lot, being Bentancur, Højbjerg, and Dyer. I think they were all kind of guilty of that. But the really big concern for me here, Dave, and maybe a huge reason why we really were stifled, is Reguilón being pinned back that far. Most games, and I think if you look at the last 3 games, everybody, with Aston Villa, Newcastle, and West Ham, Reguilón's average position at certain games was as high as Harry Kane's or Sonny, if not even higher. Because the whole point is that when Sonny fills in through the middle, Reguilón is supposed to be keeping the width very high up the pitch. Not keeping the width in general, but keeping the width very high and high up the pitch. And it's just something he wasn't doing last game. I think we'll break down probably later why, but that is the huge difference between the average positions of Spurs in the last few games versus the one versus Brighton.
And Jack, just to add to that, I think, look, you brought up the Aston Villa, the West Ham, and the Newcastle games. I think the reason why you've seen Reguilón being able to bomb forward, and I think you look back at them games, we had more possession in all of them games, whereas this one we didn't. We were on the back foot. So I think that definitely has something to do with it. I think, when we have the possession, because we're playing in their own half and we're creating chances, he can bomb forward, he can get forward and create that overlap and run. But with the way Brighton dominated the possession and kind of had us penned in, I think that's probably a representative of that.
I think you're absolutely right, Dave. And maybe not still cause for concern, but it kind of, I think, lessens that bit of cause for concern because it's just the way that Brighton played. So then Reguilón's average position is just not going to be as high as maybe it normally is. I think that's a good point there, Dave.
If he took the onus on the ball to make something happen, which he should have, which is skin your man, he would have been higher up the pitch. Sometimes you can't rely on your team to be able to get you up the pitch. Sometimes you have to do it as an individual.
I agree. I absolutely agree. 2 really good explanations there for Reguilón's average position by Dave. Brighton, again, this is kind of what's funny with their average positions, right, Dave? We were saying, they overloaded the midfield. It was impossible, to get through the midfield. They left the midfield actually quite open. What it was is that they actually made these sort of, I don't know, Dave, it's almost like little cohorts of, kind of players that are all next to each other in order to make the passing actually quite simple. And even the way you look at these average positions, Dave, didn't we talk about a bit earlier? Brighton, a team that kind of likes to pass you to death. Brighton, a team that always likes safe options, always likes to have a player there in case so that they can keep possession. These average positions of all their players actually, I think, exemplifies that because you look at their left-hand side, they have 3 to 4 players always available to them in case maybe they were to pick up the ball there. You look at the right-hand side, which they clearly favored a bit more. You look at all the average positions there of some of the players. It seems a bit interesting to me, Dave, that, Brighton, in fact, it's almost like they did overload the middle in terms of the personnel that they had. But it was more or less like actually the players that they were passing to were always kind of on the wing, and keeping possession on the wing was maybe where they like to, dominate us. And it maybe explains, how many passes they were able to get in the opposition half was just because all these players were so clustered and close together. That's my theory, Dave. And I know they overloaded the midfield, but it's almost like they overloaded the team with midfielders who happened to then keep the width.
But Jack, it's also a representative of what they were doing off the ball. So with Tottenham, what we like to do is when we play out the back, we get the ball to one of the centre-backs, they play it out to the full-back, then they try and play it into the centre midfielder. The centre midfielder plays it into Harry Kane, who drops deep. We turn, we get on the ball, so makes that run in behind. But if you look at the average positions here, right? So if we went out right with the ball, you've got 3 Brighton players out there in a position where they're blocking that pass into Harry Kane. Right, you go out left here to Reguilón. They've got 4 bodies there, which is blocking that ball anywhere into the middle there. So the only options you have on the ball when you do get it out wide which is what we like to do, is putting it down the channels. But we didn't have the runners running down the channels here, Jack.
Mm.
You know, so it's definitely it's a good representation of how they stopped us getting that ball into the middle, which is where we've been creating the danger over the last few weeks. They just overloaded the numbers out wide. So even when we had the ball, they put the numbers out wide to press us so that we could not come back inside, so that we could not find that pass to Harry Kane. But you also look at the bodies here, 8 and 5 here for Brighton. Harry Kane would usually be occupying that space. So they have one on him and one in front of him. You know, if you look at the average position, so there's no way you can get that ball to him. The only option you have is either go down the channels, which is what we didn't want to do, or come back inside and rotate across the back three, which is what we ended up doing. But anytime we went to look for the full backs to try and pass it back inside to find a Højbjerg or Bentancur, we could not do it because of the way they were set up.
And you also even look at maybe the positions of Veltman and Cucurella also show that since they're so kind of quick and kind of agile, those players can actually press a bit higher up and, can maybe get away with, maybe being played over the top. I think that was another problem we were running into was when we tried to play it over the top, it was kind of difficult because Cucurella and Veltman, they're not going to really bully you physically, but they're quick enough to make that recovery, and if you were to play them over the top, you're not just going to burn them with pace. They're going to be able to catch up with you. And so that also maybe explains their sort of average positions there. Really good breakdown, I must say, by David. To bottom Duda saying, if Liverpool is level with the mid-table team in the 88th minute, we expect them to win 9 out of 10 times. With us, the opponents grow in confidence and end up winning the longer the game is level. Why is that? Conte wants to change this. This has been on everyone's mind. And to bottom Duda, I'm actually really glad that you brought this up. This is kind of something that I think even Conte himself, to bottom Duda, was really frustrated with. He said, even if you aren't good enough to win a game, why isn't it that you aren't good enough to maybe get the point when you need it? And I think I said this yesterday on the fan show. The most frustrating part really isn't the fact that we, didn't get the best out of that game or the fact that Brighton stifled us. That isn't the most frustrating part. The most frustrating part is I don't really feel like, in my opinion, that Brighton played well enough to really deserve a goal or really deserved, to really score past us. I think they deserved every bit of that point, probably more than we deserved that point, but they were really going for a point, I feel like, more than they really were going for anything else. And so the fact that we did give them all 3 points from one really atrocious kind of set of mistakes that we will look at and break down later to bottom Duda. But I'm with Conte. I feel like what's really most frustrating is when you aren't playing well enough to maybe win the game, you can still play well enough to get that point. And it feels like most teams, they would probably get that point, like a Liverpool probably get that point, be able to survive. But it feels like sometimes with Spurs, we just lose our concentration in the times when it probably should be easiest.
Yeah, look, at the end of the day, that should have been a game that we should have got out with a result, to be honest with you. There's no excuses for it. And I agree with you here. Look, with Liverpool, they always find a way to win it. They if not, they get out of there. They make sure they get out of there with the result. I mean, we just could not do that. We could not do it. And it's exactly what Conte said, like Jack was alluding to. He said that, there's no way we should have lost that game. And if you can't win it, you got to get out with a result at the end of the day. Just keep the scoreboard ticking over. At the end of the day, when you have a bad day, and look, we've always maintained this, even when we were playing shit. If you're not playing well, you still got to have the know-how to get out of there with a result. You cannot lose in the way we did. You look at the goal in the last minute we gave up. We thought the game was over. We didn't contest it, really. And, it was just a poor, sloppy goal to give away. We switched off, and you can't do that. And look, them fine margins are the difference between being champions and not being champions. You look at Liverpool City in cup games when they're not playing well, they usually scrape by. You look at league games, if they're not playing well, they either scrape by and get out of there with a win, or they get out of there with a draw. They very rarely lose. And that's the biggest thing. We cannot be dropping these silly sort of points. You don't play well, okay. And if you don't play well and you get out of there with a result, fans can accept that. Okay, we didn't play well, but we got a point. We move on to next week, we put it right. But when you come out and you lose, it's a lot different feeling. It takes away from the momentum you're after building. It takes away from the confidence. But if we would have gone out there with a draw, we would have been confident going into Brighton. We would have still had the momentum going into Brentford. Sorry. Big up the bottom Duda.
Really, really generous to bottom Duda. And as well, I couldn't agree more. I think that's what makes, the title winning teams different from, the regular top 4, top 5, top 6 teams. I think that's just the big difference. And I probably think you probably couldn't agree more with me. But hopefully Conte is here to change that. And it seems like with Conte's quotes to Bottom Duda, he's very well aware of this problem that maybe Spurs have. Big up, my man. Really appreciate support.
Big up to Bottom Duda.
Bobby K as well, Dave, celebrating a membership as for 3 months, saying, woo, 3 months already. Happy anniversary, David and Jack. Bobby, it's been good to have you. And I can't believe you've been around for 3 months already. I must say, I think I'm even approaching my sort of 1 year anniversary, I think, on this channel as well, which I don't know, Dave, it's starting it's getting a bit scary, maybe how fast, things are kind of turning, it feels like months are just going by with the snap of a hand.
Yeah.
But I would say the fact that we're already this far, the fact that the Harris Army has still supported us this long, especially me, even personally, the fact that I've been here for a year and they still haven't kicked me out, as well as David hasn't kicked me out, is a huge pleasure. But Bobby, really do appreciate you sticking by us, my man. Really do appreciate support. And believe me, the next 3 months will fly on by, my guy.
And just to add to that, Jack, to the Harris Army out there, for how far you've been behind us, I really do appreciate. You have no idea how much it really means to myself and Jack, the support you have behind us, because without you guys, this channel is nothing, and you allow us to fulfill our dreams. And what I will say to you out there is do not worry. This channel is only going to get bigger, better, and stronger. I have so much plans in the works. And then once I get time to finalize everything and we can start rolling them out, this channel is going to have so much variety of different content. It is going to be unbelievable.
Absolutely. And Bobby, congrats on the 3 months, my man. Really do appreciate your support so far and really do hope you stick by us. And I would say the next 3 months are going to fly by, my man. Absolutely going to fly by. Just a quick explanation of the Brighton's average position. If you can kind of tell, very, very similar, right? Of course, to what it says over there to the right, from what we looked at the average positions, we kind of decide to, chalk it up, put it on the chalkboard there. Definitely footy clips. But I did put a little notes there, and I think we really more or less explained it, but maybe just to reiterate it and maybe a different sort of image. Brighton's forwards and midfielders, they really almost form these sort of kind of cohorts together, I feel like, to be able to make the possession play that they like to do very easy. They made it so that there was always a pass available. You can also see with how far these players are all spread across the pitch, you can kind of see that it is kind of a bit easier for them to be able to swing the ball around. They don't have to go for any long 30, 40-yard passes. They can be able to just cycle it through Basuma, cycle it through Dunk, and be able to keep, a bit of the width as well. It's quite clear that they actually didn't really have very much in the middle in these sort of areas on the left, but they did basically spread the whole pitch so that if they needed to play backwards, they easily could. And if they needed to switch it from side to side, they had no problem with it. And probably why David even fell asleep during the watch along, you could even tell during their average positions here, because look at how easy it would be for them to be able to pass sideways, to be able to get out of pressure. It's just these average positions make it really easy to be able to get out of pressure. So it's probably why David, was probably almost like looking like he had a lullaby rhyme, being read to him during the Brighton game.
It was very boring. It was a very boring watch when they're on the ball. It's just so boring. They offer nothing.
I think it's just always playing safe is the problem. I think it's always playing safe. But they're, to be fair, like someone said before, very effective. Very effective. Spurs' average positions against Brighton are slightly different, as we said before, compared to last time. Reguilon against Aston Villa, against Newcastle, against West Ham, he was actually closer to where Sonny and Kane are. Whereas with Bentancur and Højbjerg, they would actually be a bit higher up the pitch and not so close to Dyer. And in fact, when you really think about it, it probably had to do with that Dyer was under pressure, and so he needed someone like a Bentancur and a Højbjerg to drop deeper to receive it from him. This is average position from Romero, Emerson, and Decky is actually quite typical. I think that's been the same case the whole time, but we will break down later as to maybe what made those sort of like that performance by Decky so poor this time, because his average position is around the same, but maybe what made his performance especially poor this time is maybe we'll go into later. Dave, before we go into some really crucial still images that we took from the game, anything that maybe you want to say about either Brighton's average positions or Spurs' average positions before we move on?
No, I think we've covered it pretty much, to be honest with you. I want to get into these still images.
Let's do it. So this is one that's been brought up to me by Dave, is that anytime we went long ball, and you can even see at the top of the screen, you can kind of see the white ball, right at the top there going on to Harry Kane's head. Anytime that we did go for that vertical long ball, if Brighton won it, they had so many players available to be able to pick up that recovery. It wasn't like you go long ball and then it deflects to a Spurs player and then, you can create a bit of chaos from there. It's really hard if this is the only option you have. And then there are all these Brighton players surrounding it. So it means that when it does bounce off Harry Kane here, it's only going to go to a Brighton player. The other thing that must be said as well is that when they do pick it up, since there's so many players so close to them, it allows it so that they are easily can keep and retain possession, or they can even transition really quickly. But knowing Brighton, they never really transition very quickly. But it made it so that when they did win that possession back, they had so many players around each other that they can just keep it quite easily and quite simply. And whenever we did go for that vertical long ball, the reason we had no success with it is because of little images like this, where you can see that there are about 5-6 Brentford or Brighton players available to them in case, the ball were to be deflected a certain direction. It's almost like suffocating, really Harry Kane in that situation, Dave, if you ask me.
No, look, they've definitely done their homework. You look against Aston Villa, I think we got, 3 goals off long balls. So they've done their homework on this because they knew we were going to switch it up eventually and try and do some long balls. So what they've done is very clever. They went man for man on our players when we went long ball. But what they did do then is they dropped players into areas. They didn't go picking up our men like you see our 3 men standing here.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't go picking them up. They dropped into areas so that if that ball was knocked down by Harry Kane or headed by one of their defenders, they're the first players onto it. They're the ones that can pick up that ball. And not only that, then they can create little pockets and triangles and play out, which is what we've seen. When we did play them long balls, we didn't get Bentancur high enough. We didn't get Højbjerg high enough. Kulu is not high enough there. Usually against Aston Villa, you would have seen him running in off the right-hand side, but he's not. He's in the middle here, and so even if Harry Kane does hold that up or he does knock it down, there's nobody near him. There's nobody near him. He did not push high enough to try and meet them long balls. And then when you're playing the long balls and it's as deep as we are there up front, there's no room for Harry Kane to knock that down in behind. His only option is to try and hold it up or knock it down to someone running towards him, but there's no one there. Brighton covered their areas very well, so they nullified that part of our game. So if we did want that option to go along, we couldn't do it because they had a blanket defence, a blanket midfield right in front of it, so Harry Kane had nowhere to knock it into.
Yeah, I think I couldn't even put that any better myself, Dave. The regular celebrating as a member for 6 months, saying, appreciate the content a lot, lads. The regular, you've been here since the beginning, my man. Really do appreciate you, brother. And I would say, I really appreciate the sentiment and really do. I like that you've been enjoying the content. We do try to mix it up, I must say, from Kaniki Answer Me heated debates to, stats and tactical breakdowns to the watch alongs and the fan shows. And I would say, like David even just said earlier, regular, plenty more stuff to come out. We're going to try to hit all angles, try to be the 5-star attack, you might say, of the YouTube community. But Big yourself up, regular, and really appreciate the kind words, my man.
There you go, my man. Legend.
Another moment that David kind of brought to my eyes as well here is that he was saying that, it's not like Brighton always just put men in the box, waiting for that, that ball in. What they probably realized is that, listen, we're going with McAllister, we're going with Mwepu. Like, those aren't really big headers of the ball. What we might do is put 1 or 2 players, maybe in the box just to keep that threat, to keep Spurs honest. But what they did do is that they kind of overwhelmed the 18. They overwhelmed those areas so that when players like Trossard, who I thought had an exceptional game, unfortunately, against us because of that dribbling ability that he has. And when he is really far out wide, he can just cut inside and create a bit of havoc like he is here, where he can either play this pass inside to the top of the 18. He can swing it all the way to Tariq Lamptey if need be, who's asking for it and has plenty of space available. Another really important kind of still image to break down here, Dave, is that you can see that Brighton really did actively try to, make it so that there were passes available at the top of the 18 so that they could either play a slip through ball or just have a nice, easy shot, against Lloris. But then also so that maybe players like Romero here don't cheat or Emerson don't cheat. They also have, Cucurella still making that, that overlap, like a Ben Davies would, but Cucurella, a bit quicker than a Ben Davies, can make that overlap maybe more often, so that it really was just difficult for Spurs to, know what they were going to do. Either they're going to play that pass to Cucurella here, or they're going to play the many options available at the top of the 18.
No, 100%. And this is another team that I've seen. Look, I encourage everybody to go back and look at the highlights, and you'll see this exact same situation here. Every single opportunity they got when they did get the ball into the box, even if we headed it clear, they have players on the edge of our box ready to pick it up and shoot from distance. And they got a lot of that. Even if we wanted to head it out wide, they had the wing backs pushed so high that if you head it out to the left-hand side and the right-hand side, they're there to pick it up again, recycle it, put it back in the box, or put it to the edge of the box. And that's why they ended up getting so many chances, the 12 chances. It happened off corners, it happened off free kicks, it happened off crosses into the box. That no matter what we put in, no matter where it was headed clear to, they had another player there to pick it up and just start that wave of attack again. We're sitting way too deep in our own box here. There's no organisation back here. You have Eric Dyer shouting to somebody to pick somebody up. But you look at our two players, and we probably actually should have circled this. Look at Ben Davies and who's that? Bentancur. Two of them are marking absolutely nobody. You look at Reguilon, he's too far inside. Ben Davies has to go and pick up that man, and he has to push Reguilon out further. You eliminate the options. Bentancur has to come out to this one on the edge of the box. It's simple. You eliminate the options. You eliminate the passing options. You eliminate the overloads.
What do you make of the fact that Emerson's even on the inside of Romero here, Dave? I mean, I know we're just taking a still image moment, but like we saw this happen multiple times this game, so you can't make an excuse for Emerson every time. I have no idea why this is happening.
It's shocking, but like if we all picked up what we were supposed to pick up, if Ben Davies picked up that man, pushed Reguilon out to Lamptey, Bentancur was pushed out the edge of the box, you turn it into a game like they done to us. Yeah. You turn it into a game like they done to us, though, Jack. You don't give them the options to play through, and the onus is on you. Okay, you've no passing options. Beat me. That's what they done to us, and we didn't do that. We were all over the shop defensively and the defense and the midfield. We're way too far in. Why is Emerson tucked inside and Romero's the one coming out putting pressure on the ball? Why is that not Emerson? That's where Emerson should be. It's absolutely shocking all across the board.
And the only person standing in the way of even this pass in the first place is Højbjerg. But you can tell, Dave, Højbjerg, I mean, he's not going to be able to intercept. He's only going to be able to intercept one of these passes. It looks by his body language, he's maybe, as you probably would be, trying to maybe take away that pass to the inside left, and he's going to allow that one across the 18. But like you said earlier, Bentancur dropping so deep there, he's just allowing this guy to sit at the top of the 18. And then you just also, like you said, maybe two as well, the fact that Reguilon is tucked so far inside means that Ben Davies is, practically marking no one. So I think the real highlight here is more or less Ben Davies and Bentancur here, Dave. Like, who on earth are they marking? Who on earth are they, responsible for? Because they're making players like Højbjerg here have to make a dangerous decision. Like, am I going to let this pass inside happen where maybe that guy gets through? Or am I going to have to give up maybe this shot outside the 18, which easily could be a goal as well?
See what Brighton done is right. They played without a lot of the game till they brought on Welbeck without sort of like a recognised striker. But when they did pick up the ball, they flooded so many bodies forward to create that havoc between the midfield and defence. But then he almost had a second wave that came up behind him that just filled the spaces up around the edge of the box. Yeah. It was very, very clever. And like the thing is, if everybody was doing their job, Emerson was out here. Kulusevski should be taking the overlap of Cucurella. Reguilon should be pushed out further. Ben Davies should be picking up somebody instead of marking space. Bentancur should be on the edge of the box picking up that guy. If we just got our defensive shape, right, you stop a lot of these chances. But Brighton just confused us. They had us all over the place. They had us at 6s and 7s at the back.
I think I completely agree here. To bottom Duda, I'm going to read the super chat aloud, but I would say I'm going to give this a much better answer when we break down Kulusevski's stats later. But he's saying Kulu is our best signing and a top player. But do you think his lack of pace got exposed a bit against Brighton in this match? Not criticizing him. To bottom Duda, I agree. I think it was. I really think it was because Cucurella, you could say, has more pace than Kulusevski does. So when Kulusevski does beat him, he can easily recover and get right back in front of him. You even look as well, Trossard worked a lot harder than I expected him to as well. Then you look at those two players can be a bit of a nuisance to Kulusevski. Then when you kind of have useless Emerson on your side as well, in possession, it's almost like a 2-on-1. In the wrong sort of the sense, for Kulusevski every time. And then his lack of, he's never been the guy that can just, have the privilege to be able to just knock it 20 yards in front of him and just run onto it. He's never been that sort of player. He's always had to use his brain. He's always had to use, a bit more of that creativity, a bit clever. And when you find yourself being basically constantly defended by two players and your fullback is never helping you out, you will get exposed for that lack of pace. You will get exposed, for maybe not being able to get out of your own half. And the fact that Kulusevski also is picking up the ball so deep in his half, I think also made it really, really tough for him, to get going. And we will break it down later to bottom Duda, because there's some really good stats that are kind of exemplifying exactly what you're saying here, my man.
Do you know what? I would partially agree with this, because look, the type of game it was screaming out for somebody just to take on their man, knock the ball by him and go. Kulusevski is not that player, and I think the reason why he ended up swinging out,
but not a criticism of him, like the bottom Duda is saying, yeah.
But the reason why he ended up swinging out at Cucurella is because he didn't have the pace to be able to knock the ball by him and go. So he ended up coming back, which with Cucurella, he just kept on putting the pressure on Kulusevski as he was running backwards with the ball, and he was just frustrating Kulusevski. I definitely think there's an element to that. 100%, my man, 100%. It was screaming for people to take players on.
Really good super chat to bottom dude. I really do appreciate your support and supporting the channel, my man. And I promise you, we'll give you an even more in-depth answer to that later, to bottom dude. Just some more still images, just from the game in general. This one is maybe just a bit more for comic relief, as it is also a bit, it's kind of a red flag as well. I think it is a big red flag. Harry Winks in this situation, everybody, he's actually tracking, I believe it was, I always say McAllister because it's kind of hard to tell Brighton players apart. But I think it is McAllister in this case, running across, trying to pick up the ball here. And Harry Winks, if you watch back this highlight, everybody, he just lets him run across him and he lets him, get this pass in here. I think what's more concerning here, maybe to really highlight what's wrong with this, is that Højbjerg as well is the one that's not allowing, I think it's Ollie Marsh or Solly Marsh or whoever it is out wide here, in order to come inside. So what's really more concerning is, and you can even tell by his body language here, why is Reguilón, Dave, dropping off? If Højbjerg is taking away that inside, the only thing Reguilón should be doing here is absolutely clattering through him and trying to win the ball there. I mean, where on earth is he going here, Dave? And also the fact that even this pass gap or this little area between Højbjerg and Reguilón is even available doesn't make sense, because Højbjerg is trying to take away that inside pass. All Reguilón needs to do is do his job in order to try to press the guy here and win that ball back. But instead, he's sitting off of him, and then this pass is available. Harry Winks pulls out of the challenge, doesn't want to run through the guy. It's so obvious that this is the guy they are going to go to here as well. And it's really shocking to me, because Winks, he lets that pass happen. And then even after letting it happen, Dave, he doesn't just run through him like most players would out of frustration. I probably would have done that if that happened to me. I just would run through the guy, knock him over, just kind of feel like, I should have been there. But what does Winks do? Instead, he just drops off him, doesn't want to make the challenge. And then it actually leads to a really good chance for them down the right-hand side. The other big red flag here as well is that Ben Davies and Eric Dyer are both marking the same individual again. We saw that earlier with Ben Davies. Maybe the common denominator here is Ben Davies, because we saw Bentancur, Ben Davies earlier marking kind of the same space, marking the same player. So there is a bit of a communication problem happening. And there also is a bit of a lack of understanding who's responsible for what in terms of the areas, or kind of, the geographic maybe areas of the pitch as well. But Dave, any of these red flags of the three that really, are a big concern to you?
I want to talk about, again, we're exposing where two players are marking the one player. Look, I know we say Eric Dyer is a leader, but if you had a true leader, like a Van Dijk or someone, that shit doesn't happen. Shit doesn't happen. It's so annoying. It's so annoying. If you had a true leader at the back, you don't have the clip that we showed you before. You don't have this happening right now, where two players are marking one. Harry Winks, first of all, you go back and look at the clip. It's absolutely shambolic. He doesn't want to tackle him. He's in two minds whether he should tackle him or stay on his feet. But then he slides too late, erratically, then gets up and follows his man. But then he gives up. At this point, he gives up. But what he should be doing, is screaming at Davies, I'm passing him on. I'm passing him on. And then that way you have Ben Davies picking up that. You have Dyer picking up that. You're fine. You're sorted. But two players on that one guy is shocking. Reguilón, he's too far off. The guy has only one option. Yeah. And that's either skin him or go backwards. Get up closer. Push tighter to him. Højbjerg's blocked off that pass in the middle. But by Reguilón dropping off, what he does is he opens that pass into the middle. He opens that pass. and then puts us in trouble because Winks gives up.
It's I think it's just compounding errors when you really look at it. It's just compounding errors. It's not really one, or it's not entirely on Winks, it's not entirely on Regulon, it's not entirely on Dyer and Davies, but it is just all collaborates and all kind of
Yeah.
compounds off of each other into one glaring red flag, I would argue, in my case. But we do now want to move on to maybe how did Brighton in fact stifle our front three? Because the big issue, everybody, was why weren't we able to get the ball into Sonny? Why weren't we be able to get the ball into Kulusevski or Harry Kane? This is what we're going to break down here. And I think there were some pretty clever minds, as well as David's, that did kind of want to talk about the fact that what really they did, Dave, it wasn't really overloading the middle. What it was is pressing the man, whoever was on the ball, and making that pass to Harry Kane, making that pass to a Sonny, making that pass to a Kulusevski very, very difficult and almost scary, you could say, because what happens here is McAllister, I'm even actually giving them a bit of credit, or he would almost be closer in this case here, Dave. He basically made it so that this sort of over the top, or this sort of kind of dink ball into Harry Kane is just not possible. And even when we tried to do it, when it wasn't even there, it was almost done blindly. They had to like bend it around, the man that was pressing them, so that it just wasn't really on. And what then happens, that Dave, is that if this pass to Harry Kane isn't available, you still had plenty of Brighton players that were taking away the passes from Højbjerg, taking away the passes to Dyer, taking away the passes to Emerson or Decky as well. And I think that's the big problem, Dave, is not only was this pass, to Harry Kane not available, but then the other passes to Højbjerg and Dyer were also very sketchy and also weren't, safe passes either. So you do just have to give credit to the Brighton, press, because it wasn't really them clogging up the middle or anything. What I think it really was, Dave, was actually them putting on a lot of pressure on whoever was on the ball, and whoever was on the ball then didn't have a lot of time to make a decision and didn't actually know what pass was really available to them that was the right choice.
Look, it's the reason why they were able to eliminate what we've been doing over the last few weeks, which is finding Harry Kane, Jack, is because they triggered certain presses. They didn't press Eric Dyer whatsoever, because they know he's no threat to get that ball to Harry Kane, because it's just going to be one straight long ball. So we're prepared to let him play that all day. As soon as Romero and Davies got the ball, they put the pressure on them at a certain angle, which stopped them putting it into Harry Kane, but meant they had to either go out to Emerson or Regulon, which they were both marked. So no matter what side you went out to, the pressure was on. But we noticed over the last few weeks, we looked to do that. We looked to get it out wide, then pass it back into the middle, into Bentancur, and get him to play it to Kane. But they also pressed our midfield, our two midfielders with two of their midfielders. And then their extra midfielder, they just dropped into the pocket so that Harry, even if we did try and dink one in there, it was blocked off. Harry Kane was blocked off. It was down to very, very smart pressing. You look at it, they went three across the back, they matched up our three, and they said, okay, go long balls, we'll take this all day. We're comfortable, put them in behind. We're dropping deep enough anyway, so that space isn't there. And what they did do then is they committed men forward at certain times to press. As soon as, like I said, Romero or Davies got the ball, their midfielders pushed up onto Højbjerg. Bentancur took them out. Their wing-backs pushed right back up onto Regulon. Emerson took them out. And the way they were, the guy was being pressed on the ball, it took out the angle of the pass to Harry Kane. So he had no option but just to go to Eric Dyer. And then Eric Dyer would slow everything down, go at walking pace. We could not get out. And this is the reason why. It's down to smart pressing our wing-backs, pressing our midfielders. And all we were left with then was having the ball across the back line, which we could not do anything with. The game was actually screaming out, Jack, for one of these defenders to pick up the ball and venture into midfield, commit one of their men out to find them spaces, but we didn't want to do it. We were too happy rotating the ball across the back three until proper pressure came on us where we had to go along. But in essence, what we should have done is one of them took the onus to venture into midfield with the ball and commit men forward and try and play through it. And we just didn't want to do it. We were too nervous. None of them wanted to be the ones to make that mistake.
No, no one wanted to make that mistake. And to be fair as well, Dave, like to them, like when you also can barely see that pass available, like Romero, like he has to like almost look through McAllister in order to even see this pass to Harry Kane. Maybe the pass is sort of on, but when you can't just directly see it in front of you, it makes that pass even more difficult. And in my eyes, Dave, is maybe with Romero here is that when they even started forcing it, it was still hard for them, because it's a lot easier to make that long pass into Harry Kane when there's almost like a through channel for it. When you can just see him as clear as day, it makes that pass a lot easier. When you're having to pass it almost through a player like, McAllister here, it makes it a ton more difficult for a player like Romero. This is kind of the reverse situation where it wasn't just the case for Romero, like David was saying. Let's say Ben Davies gives it to Reguilón here. The same thing happens all over again. This pass into Harry Kane is impossible. You can even tell that the passes into Sonny are not easy either. Switches of play to Kulusevski aren't really there. The only passes that are available are sideways or backwards. And then even when you do make those sideways or backwards passes, it's only going to cause the Brighton press to push even further and further up and then suffocate us even more. So like we said, it's not even just Romero's side. It happened to Reguilón. And I think the big problem is that whereas someone like a Romero is a bit more calm, a bit more collected in these sort of scenarios, Reguilón gets flustered and he gets anxious in these sort of situations, which is why he gave the ball away, I think, so much as well, which I think needs to be pointed out.
Yeah, and look, I think the correct terminology for all this is they cut the passing lanes. Correct. Is what they've done. They cut out the passing lanes, so they went and attacked us, but then they filled up the gaps between, towards Harry Kane. So they completely just cut off the passing lanes, and they were happy to let us have it around the back. Now, look, I myself get frustrated about the slow passing across the back, right? Now, look, I more so get frustrated when we do it in the opposition's final third, because that's when you need to be zippy with it. But the reason why you see us do that at the back is because we want to invite the press. We want to invite the opposition onto us and invite them out and give them a chance to feel like they can win the ball high so that we can play through it. And that's why we've been getting this space we've been getting the last few months or the last few games.
Yeah.
Because we've invited them on through slow pass and made them feel like they can win the ball. And then we've been able to play through it. Teams pressed us. They think, just press Tottenham, press Tottenham. But what Potter done is he took Aston Villa's game plan with the press, but he adapted it to the point where press us, but block off the passing lane. So once you do that, they have no out. They can't play through you. We take the ball back, and then we keep the pressure on in their half. And that's why you see the passes in our own half, passes into final third. We just could not get out. He literally took Gerrard's game plan of the press, but adapted it. So when you do press, you have to cut off certain passing lanes. Rather than press us man for man, one would press, the others would cut off the passing lanes, and we couldn't get out. It was genius.
Yeah, and really well broken down there, I must say as well, Dave. Genius to you. Trossard's goal explained. This is kind of the animation that we're just going to bring up, everybody on maybe what, Trossard's goal really looked like. The big problem here, everybody, is that, and I do want to go back here, is that it started with this Lewis Dunk free kick here. And what really the big issue is that Emerson was responsible, I'll admit, for both Trossard and Welbeck. But my big problem here, Dave, is that I've made excuses for Emerson because he is a defensive fullback and he is good at getting stuck in. He did not do that game. And so then I have no excuses for him anymore, because we know that he's not good going forward. But if he can't be good defensively in a game, then really those were when the big question marks come up with the guy. Because if he can't have a good game defensively and you can't rely on him consistently for good defensive performances, then you really have to raise your eyebrows as to what this guy's really offering. Lewis Dunk sends in this free kick. Welbeck, it's a completely uncontested header, to which he hits over to Lallana. What actually happens here is Romero gets actually quite stuck in here once the ball gets actually shifted over to Trossard. Romero, in fact, gets stuck twice. Then Trossard just fakes out Dyer and plays it through. It's kind of a very clustered sort of animation here. I'll play it one more time for everybody, but we do kind of want to break down the still images of maybe all the sort of red flags maybe about this sort of goal here. But again, another big red flag that will be brought up later too is the fact that Emerson, after not contesting the header, then goes to compete for the same player that has the ball, Trossard, as Højbjerg, leaving that space in behind him as well. There are a bunch of red flags that happen. So this is kind of the Trossard goal kind of explained, everybody.
And the reason why we brought the still images is because it's good to show you the goal on the tactical pad. But we also want you to bring the still images so that we can break down exactly each individual moment where it went wrong, so that we can show you the backup on the proof to what we're saying, so that you don't think we're just making it up and talking shit.
Well, this is the example A, Dave. Well said, Dave. Well said. Example A, free header allowed by Emerson. This is where it is. I mean, look at Emerson in this situation. The ball hasn't even come down to Welbeck yet. It's a completely free header available to Lallana. It then gets
Mm.
knocked down to
I
Lallana.
just,
And yeah.
we'll expand on these just quickly. Look, that's a header, Jack. You have to go and contest. Now, look, what the image doesn't show is that there is a player in here behind Emerson. But, if you go and contest that header, you like, this is 90 minutes. 90 minutes, and we're standing off uncontested headers and just letting them.
Clobber him.
Yeah, you've got to go through the back of them. You've got to go and compete. You've got to go and win that ball. This is 90 minutes. How much does 3 points mean to you? Go and meet that ball, contest them, put the challenge in. Okay, if he gets the flick on, Romero's whole job at that right centre back is to come across and cover. That's what he's there to do. So he will come across and cover that man. But Emerson, you've got to go and meet that in the air. You can't let them have a free header in their own half. This is 90 minutes we're talking about. That's shocking.
It is shocking, Dave. It really is shocking. And what he compounds on that error, though, Dave. He compounds on that error because once it gets knocked down to Lallana, knows that he knows that Romero is about to close him down. He plays it out wide to Trossard. Trossard, probably is like, wow, look at my luck here, because Højbjerg is about to close down Trossard and force him out wide. But what ends up happening is Emerson, for no reason at all, abandons that space that's behind him, which allows Welbeck, after winning that header, to make that run in between Romero and Eric Dyer. Trossard goes for that sort of, dink outside the foot sort of pass into Welbeck here, which just compounds on the errors, Dave. But I don't know. I will kind of break down maybe whose fault it is, maybe for this goal, Dave. But at the beginning, it really is just all Emerson here. It's two really bad errors. And the fact that he kind of sort of compounds on this error by, closing down the same man as Højbjerg, which is completely unnecessary. Because if you really look at Trossard and his body position before he plays this pass, where is he going? What danger does he pose? Højbjerg is showing him out wide. He's also a right-footed player. He's a right-footed player, so he would like to cut inside. So the fact that Højbjerg is showing him outside, which is exactly what you want to see, why does Emerson then feel the need to have to close him down here? If he is going to close him down here and he is going to maybe, put the extra pressure on, he's got to win this then, Dave. He's got to win this ball here. But instead, he's kind of just moseying around, maybe not really knowing where to put himself, which makes this little dink pass with the arrow kind of being pointed out to Welbeck all the more easier, which allows them to keep possession.
But by Emerson doing this, it's pulled us completely out of shape. Højbjerg's already over there putting the pressure on. Where Emerson needs to be is exactly where Romero needs to be. Where Dyer is where Romero needs to be. Where Davies is where Dyer needs to be. Everyone needs to be across one. By Emerson coming out there, he then exposes Romero and opens up that pass in behind. It's just numbskull defending. But the reason why he done that, Jack, is because he knew he made an error by not contesting that header. And usually what they say in sport is you do one error, it's quickly compounded with another error, like you were saying there, Jack. And it's exactly what he done. He knew he made an error. He knew it could have been costly, so he tried to make up for it, rushes out and exposes our whole back line. And they just pop the ball in behind. It's absolutely shocking. Idiot. But not only that, we'll get onto it. We'll show it. He could have also prevented by doing a smart recovery run defensively. The build up to this goal, all Emerson. What happened in the box, purely on Dyer, but it's shocking.
No, I think it's a big combination between Emerson and Dyer here. This is actually me, Dave, because I've been hearing, this is my own little rant. I don't even think it's going to be a rant, but my little moment here, Dave. I've heard lots of people say, and I actually could see how, in the moment we all thought it was Romero's fault. I actually don't think Romero did a thing wrong. I actually thought he just got extraordinarily unlucky here, because you look at that pass that Trossard played, Romero has to close that down, to Welbeck. Romero, if you watch it back, gets stuck in here on Welbeck. He wins this challenge. What happens though after that is that the ball then just unluckily, like always, Dave, you maybe get stuck in, just gets deflected, gets knocked back, to another player. It gets knocked back to Lallana, and then we'll show the next image here. Romero gets stuck in again on Lallana after he already won it the previous time. So Romero has now won 2 tackles off the bounce straight away, Dave. And look at these 2 players that I think I'd like to highlight here. Emerson and Dyer. You look at Emerson, jogging back after this pass here. You look at Dyer sitting off of this pass, maybe available, to Lallana. Once the deflection, I'll concede to Dyer here. Romero gets stuck in. He probably didn't expect, the ball, to get over to Lallana, but it did. And then Dyer, what does he do? He just sits off, continues to sit off. Romero's like, all right, if you want me to get stuck in again, Moon Boots, I guess I will. Get stuck in again. What happens after that is then Romero, after winning the ball, it bounces off of his heel or something like that. Doesn't know where it is. It bounces off of his heel. To criticize him for that, I think is extraordinarily harsh because he's already doing all the proactive defending that we've been asking for. Everyone else is sitting off and no one is helping him, which then leads to, right, you can see it bouncing off of his heel there. We see Trossard reading this and about to get onto the ball. But look at maybe even the angle of this here, Dave. Emerson, Dyer, ball watching. They've been ball watching these past 3 frames, Dave. Ball watching these past 3 frames. Why can't they win this loose ball here? Romero wins this for them. It then gets tossed to Lallana. No problem that it goes to Lallana here. But once Romero wins that tackle again, off of Lallana, why is it that the deflection then is available for Trossard? Because you really look at this, there are 2 players, and I think Emerson and Dyer that easily could have gotten there.
Well, Emerson's closer to the ball than any of them. Why couldn't Emerson get stuck? If Dyer was proactive, like Romero usually is, he comes out and he wins that ball. But he's ball watching, and Dyer keeps backing off. And Emerson
Dyer's kept the same position for all 3 frames. All 3 frames has kept the same spot.
And Emerson, he has no desire to win that ball whatsoever. He's just ball watching. And when you go on to the last image, it'll show more to the extent of Emerson's ball watching. And Jack, you're absolutely spot on. I mean, I don't get how people can blame Romero for that. He's the only one down that side that got stuck in. He's being proactive. He's doing his job. Like, Emerson doesn't go in the header, right? He then goes and presses a man that Højbjerg's already pressing, which exposes us and puts that and leaves that pass on in behind Romero. Romero's the only one that goes and tries to win it back, not once but twice. And everyone else around him is standing there ball watching. This is 90 minutes. The only one that wants to win and stop that from happening is Romero. He's the only one. Emerson couldn't give a cahoots. Dyer couldn't give a cahoots. The only one that realizes the danger, smells the danger, and sniffs the danger is Romero. The only one that wants to do anything about it and wants to get out of there with the draw is Romero.
And then, Dave, explain to me Dyer's body positioning here from this fake shot from Trossard. I don't know, Dave. I mean, being paid $100,000s a week, you would think, you would probably be okay with, taking one off the chest, taking one maybe even off the family jewels. You think, you'd be paid enough for it. He falls for the easiest dummy in the world. I said, even Dave, like Trossard, he is a skillful dribbler. It's exactly what he likes to do. He likes to get you with these sort of fakes, these sort of dummies. And to be fair, it was a really good move. It was a very clever one by him. But if we're going to call Dyer, like the crux of this defense, if we're going to say that everything, every success of this back 3 has to do with Dyer, I don't know if we can say that anymore after he falls for this fake from Trossard, because he can fall for the fake, Dave, but look at the way that he shields himself and, tries to protect himself. That just makes it even worse, if you ask me. If he had just stood still and then watched him go by and maybe a good finish happen from there, it wouldn't look as bad. I don't think it would look as bad. But the fact that he does turn his body like that, Dave, makes it all the more worse. And to be fair, I don't even know if Romero does that. I don't even know if Emerson does that. I think that's just something that we do see Moon Boots do from time and time again, similar to kind of the Timo Werner kind of situation where he does find himself, Moon Boots, in kind of the ends of games. He will switch off. He will start ball watching. He will start looking like the opposite defender that he's been for the whole 90 minutes. And maybe that my final point here, Dave, is that Eric Dyer is that defender. He can be solid for 90 minutes. It's that 1 second where he will lose it. And I think Marcelo said that before. I think we were saying that about last season before even Moon Boots was even having a good season this season. We said that about him last season, is that he can be good for 90 minutes, but he will switch off in that one and they will punish you.
Yeah. Look, it's the same with Ben Davies as well. Look, and like this is something we've been saying a long time, but if you bring back up that image there with Dyer, Jack, right? Now, Dyer's going to tell you, well, the reason why I jumped out like that is because I wanted to block the shot going towards the far post. Okay. But by reducing half your body size and jumping out the way you did, You're actually opening up the shot for him for the
Both
far
shots are available. Yeah.
Right? Now, what he's also done is expose himself for the cut down between him and Emerson, which is what ended up happening. But like with Eric Dyer, right? You've got to come out like this. You've got to come out and make your body big. Block everything off. Block the cut in. Block the shot. Come out and be big. Be brave. Do not turn your back. By doing what he done there, he's completely exposed himself to be taken on. But he's also reduced half of his body size. So he's actually opening up the goal. You've got to come out and put your body on the line. I get it. It's 90 minutes. He's probably tired. He's probably got a bit of pain. He probably doesn't want to take the ball to the stomach or the nuts. But for God's sake, you've got to. If you don't want to do that, go and play fucking Sunday League. You're being paid $100,000 a week to be able to do that, to put your body on the line. You got to push through that pain barrier. He just didn't want to do it. Right there, that moment there just tells me winning isn't everything to this guy. Because if it is, he fronts it up with his whole body. He's a big guy. He's a white guy. He fronts it up. He blocks everything off, but he doesn't. He falls for a dummy, reduces half the size of his body by turning sideways, jumping out. It's absolutely shambolic defending. It's schoolboy defending. You don't want to put your body on the line. Go and do it on Sunday League, where at least when the manager says, when you put your bollocks on the line, well, you're not paying me for it, you have an excuse. But he has no excuse. He's being paid. He's at the top level. Keep your body. Like I said, you're big. You're a white guy. Front it. Put your body on the line. He doesn't do it. And then what? And you also look at Emerson here. Emerson is not escaping criticism here, by the way.
No. He could even cut out this move.
We've seen it over the last 3-4 images. Emerson is watching exactly. It's just ball watching. So he can see that this guy has sold the dummy and he's coming this side. Now, why isn't Emerson on a recovery run on the outside? On a recovery run here, knowing that he can see what he's going to do. But if you go back and look at the goal, Emerson just jogs.
Yeah,
he knows exactly what he's going to do, and he doesn't want to sprint to make that recovery run to cut it out. You know what I mean? And eliminate the danger. He doesn't do it. He just stands there ball watching and jogs. And ultimately, it's just shambolic between Dyer and Emerson. Romero's the only one that winning meant anything to him because he was the only one that went to go and try and win the ball. The other two are just standing there ball watching for the whole thing. They think 90 minutes, the game is over. Grand, perfect. And Romero's the only one that sniffs the danger and what can happen. And ultimately, it's ended up what happened is it lost the game.
Dave, I think even just to say, to prove that maybe we're not crazy about this whole situation, that isn't too much to ask from Dyer. Do you remember that game in the beginning of the season where Romero against Aston Villa? I believe it was a Matt Target. I think when Matt Target was back over at Aston Villa, he made that kind of half volley attempt. And I remember Romero, this was under the days of Nuno. I remember Romero, Dave, he was actually on his knees at the time, but then went up and stood up and put up his whole chest and wore that shot straight into the stomach from like a 5-10 yard distance. Yeah. That probably would have hurt a lot more and probably would have taken your whole breath away more than that shot that Dyer actually was about to receive from Trossard. That shot that Trossard was going to hit into Dyer's midriff was going to be a whole lot less painful than the one that Romero took from Matt Target. And the fact that Romero, I remember, just stood there and just wore that like a man and actually looked at it like it didn't even faze him in any way whatsoever. And I know it probably did, Dave, because I think we've all been there before. It does knock your breath away. It does make it difficult, to get a breath in. But the fact that that was one where you really look at that situation that Matt Target had, he was lining up for a full power hit and Romero still put his body on the line there. Whereas someone like Eric Dyer, it's just like a little fake shot. It's just a dummy by Trossard that's just going to be a curler. It's not even like he's trying to hit it up with pace or hit it up with venom or anything. And the fact that Dyer still shields his body away from it, it just says the two differences between the defenders. I think two different mentalities.
You ask 100%. You're absolutely spot on there, Jack. And I'm glad you brought that up. But you ask any professional footballer, the only reason why you turn like that is because you don't want to get hurt. You ask any professional footballer, they will tell you, when you turn away from a shot like that, it's because you don't want to get hurt. That is the only reason why. It's schoolboy defending. It's not good enough. And Bobby, he says we can blame the defense, but have to look at the 0 attempts on target. Everyone was off. No, look, 100%. 100% we have to look at it. But it just goes back. Like, the thing is,
just to clear it up, we just are breaking down what went wrong over that goal. Like, we're just breaking down image by image by image by image of what went wrong in that goal. So, yeah, sorry. Continue, Dave.
I actually do blame the defense on this one because you look at over the last few weeks, West Ham. Our attacking players won that game. Defensively, we were crap, and we gifted them a goal, and we gifted them opportunities. Newcastle, attacking play, phenomenal. Defensively, we, again, the goal we gifted them. It was poor. You look at Aston Villa. We shouldn't have won that game 4-0. We should have been bet off the field by halftime. Defensively, we were shit. You look at this game. Now, the attacking players my point is the attacking players have carried us the last few weeks. They were off form. Potter put the tactics out to stifle us and stop us from playing going forward. So when you have a day like that and an off day, the good teams, they get out of there with that draw. They get out of there with that result because they can rely on their defense to keep it sturdy. Now, even when we've been blowing teams out of the park, we haven't been able to rely on our defense. So now that the forwards didn't play their part this game, and you have to accept that they are going to have an off day. But when they have that off day and they can't blow the oppositions away like they used to be doing, that's when you need Dyer the most. That's when you need Davies the most. That's when you need your defense the most. To get you out of there with that point. We get that point. We're 4 points ahead of Arsenal now. The whole mood this weekend is completely different and everything else. And for me, I think you got to blame the defense on this one. I know nobody turned up, but over the last few weeks, our attacking players have got us the points. They've got us the results necessary. This week, it was off to the back line, and they failed us. They let us down, but it's the same it's same players that have let us down time and time again. I mean, I remember last season against Wolves, Davies had an unbelievable game for 87 minutes and switched off and gave their defender a free header, which ended up clawing them back and getting them a result. It's just stuff like that these results, and we've seen it over the last couple of seasons, they're the difference between making Champions League and not making Champions League.
Spot on.
That's the difference. It's them sort of results.
Absolutely. And Bobby K here is saying, where was the communication we keep giving him credit for? Yeah, that's a bit of a mic drop, I must say, Bobby. That's a bit of a mic drop, because you look at that, he's just ball watching the whole time, not even speaking to anybody, not even saying, let me get this one, guys, not even saying mine, not even saying, man on, not even, just didn't even look like he was even there, Dave, actually. He's just playing pedestrian the whole time.
But when you look at some of the other images we showed you beforehand on the build-up to this goal, that mistake was always going to happen. And Jack, this kind of correlates everything we've been talking about today. You look at the possession, the passes in our half, the passes in the opposition third, the pressure. Okay, maybe they didn't have great chances and great opportunities out of that, but what it done is it kept us under pressure. What we were doing then, it then put our defense, our midfield, Jack, all over the shop. You go back to some of the images we were showing of people, of our own players marking each other. Nobody's communicating, passing men up, picking people up. And then what happens is all of that then creates to this goal. And that's why they end up getting the goal, because they kept the pressure on us, kept passing it in around our half, kept them looking to feed it into the final third, kept them creating overlaps and numbers which our defenses and midfields couldn't handle. We had no leader at the back to point people into positions. And ultimately, all of that suffocation resulted in the goal in the 90th minute.
Yeah. Really well said. Really. And Bobby K, I think that was a bit of a mic drop there, about Eric Dyer, to be honest, because it kind of makes me think, as much as I agree, for a long time, Eric Dyer has contributed to where we are today. We wouldn't be where we are this season without Eric Dyer. Yeah. You can't overhype sometimes what the guy still has in him. He still has these moments in him. And that's what I think it was Deo or Debottom Duda might have been. I think it was Debottom Duda, actually, who really cleverly said, Dave, the difference between a Dyer and a world-class defender is are these moments. A Dyer can be a great defender for 90 minutes, but what makes him different from a world-class defender is that the world-class defender doesn't sit there and ball watches and doesn't also turn away like he did there in that situation either. And as a credit to Eric Dyer, he's still a great defender, could make most, I would say, decent teams in the Premier League, if not even outside of Europe as well. But that's what makes him the difference between why he isn't playing for a Man City, why he isn't playing for Real Madrid, why he isn't one of the best players that you consider in the Premier League when you think about center backs. That's the reason why Eric Dyer, maybe even for a reason, isn't even in the England team, for an extent, is because of moments like that. And I know that sounds harsh, but I do feel like these are the moments that do kind of explain who Eric Dyer is at his core.
Doesn't happen at Chelsea. They got Thiago Silva. Doesn't happen at Liverpool. They've got Van Dijk. Doesn't happen at City. They've got Laporte or whoever there. And that is the difference between, like, you look at the Premier League right now. You've got Chelsea, then you've got Liverpool, then you've got City. You look at Liverpool and City's defence; they're probably on par with each other. Then you have a bit of a drop off to Chelsea, but they have some very good players there. And then you have the likes of Tottenham, United, Wolves, West Ham, Arsenal. Now, the only reason why Wolves and West Ham are in the conversation is because Spurs' backline has been piss poor over the course of this season. If that was tighter, we've blown them out of the water. They're not even close to top four. Same if United's backline was tighter this season and they had better than Lindelof and Maguire for most of the season. They don't concede as many goals. Again, Wolves, West Ham, nowhere near the top four. It's because our defence is poor. And again, it just goes back to what you're saying, Jack. The top level, which is where we're trying to be, it doesn't happen. They have players to make sure that doesn't happen. The level we're at, the reason why we're at this level is because of little moments like that. At the end of the season, all these points add up and make a difference. We lost out on Champions League last season by 5 points. I can guarantee you I can pull up 2 games now off the top of my head, but I can find another 3, which cost us them 5 points. The Newcastle game, when we were winning 1-0 and we conceded late on, met them back into the game. They ended up taking a result. And you have the Wolves game with Ben Davies switching off as well, like I said. And there's going to be more instances. And these are the fine margins. And this is the difference between challenging and winning trophies and always being the nearly men.
Yeah. Wow. Mic drop there, Dave. Really well said. Going to wrap up the rest of the show, everybody, with a bit of player stats. And this is what's really sad, everybody. Normally, we kind of bring up 4 players that we thought, were kind of maybe contenders for man of the match. 4 players that we thought really played crucial roles in helping us get the win or helping us get the result. This one are 4 players that I think we thought had pretty poor games. And in fact, the stats are showing how poor of a game they had. Progressive carries, that's supposed to say 0 for Kulu. He had 0 progressive carries, 0 shot creating actions, 0 out of 3 players dribble pass. So he missed all of his attempts at trying to skin a man. Passes made under pressure, only 1. Key pass is 0. A key pass is any direct pass that leads to a shot attempt. So basically any sort of pass that, sets up your teammate for a shot. He had 0 of those. 2 fouls committed. This is just sad from Kulusevski, but I can't think we can dog on him, Dave, because he's been absolutely brilliant until this point. And it's just probably explained by the fact that he didn't have any help from Emerson. And then also just they did their homework on Kulu and they realized, listen, if you put 2 men on that guy, he doesn't have the pace to be able to just touch it past you, 20 yards. And if he doesn't have any support, you are going to frustrate him. And I think that's what they did.
Yeah, well, I think the reason why we kind of brought this up is just more to highlight how little effect our forwards kind of had on the game.
Yeah,
it's not a representation of Kulu because Kane and Son also, I guarantee you go to Kane and Son, they're going to have very, very similar numbers to this guy in terms of all these stats. It just highlights more or less that we just could not get them into the game whatsoever, because you take these stats and bring up stats from Aston Villa, from Newcastle, from West Ham, you've got numbers there. You don't have 0s and 1s.
Yeah. Well said. Really well said. Emerson stats from the game. I think he was dribbled past twice by players. I think it wasn't the most. I think it was Højbjerg or Dyer that was dribbled past them. I think it was Højbjerg, but the problem is that Højbjerg is part of a 2-man midfield. And I think he was dribbled past 3 times. And that actually is more of an excuse because the areas that Højbjerg is getting dribbled past are nowhere near as dangerous as the areas that Emerson is getting dribbled past. He had 5 successful pressures, which I believe was like the second, tied for the second highest amongst like 4 or 5 players. But the reason I brought this up as a bad stat, Dave, is Emerson had, I think, 32 pressures on the day, which was, I believe, 11 or 12 more than anyone else. But then he was tied for like 2nd or 3rd with most successful pressures. So the pressures he even did weren't really like often successful. It's almost like kind of half-assed, sort of pressures that maybe he was putting in that game, like maybe the jogging that you sort of referenced there. He's always very aggressive. He's always kind of a bit wiry, and always trying to get in people's face, Emerson. But it kind of just showed that he just wasn't as successful in maybe the aggression that he usually shows. Passes and crosses into the penalty area, 0. Possession lost 10 times. Tackles and interceptions, 3 combined. Fouls committed 4. I think this is the worst one, Dave. because Brighton, they took the sting out of the game, like we said, with possession. But another way they took the sting out of the game was time wasting. And that came whenever we fouled them. That came whenever they had a free kick. That came whenever they had a goal kick in the case of Sanchez. And when Emerson committed 4 fouls, and I believe at one stage he committed a really bad foul at like the 88th or 89th minute, which is the last possible time you want to be committing a foul for them to be able to take the sting out of the game. And he provided them that. He committed more fouls than anybody else on the pitch. I thought this was just an atrocious game from Emerson, Dave.
It was absolutely shocking, Jack. Absolutely shocking. Look, the ones that frustrate me more is the ones going forward. No passes, no crosses into penalty area. Now, there was a number of times this guy had the ball out on the right in a bit of space. And you just look at him. You're like, you look at the size of his legs. You look at the size of the guy. You're like, just knock that ball down the line and sprint. Nobody's going to come in and jostle you off that. Nobody. Get it. Put it down the line with the ball in. Did not want to do it. He tries to play inside, but he couldn't do that, Jack. There was one pass he done earlier on, and me and you were livid at it. And you know exactly what one I'm going to bring up, and it's the one where he has the ball out on the right-hand side, and he tries to pass it to the inside. Now, we're talking about a guy who cannot pass with the inside of his foot, which is the basic.
Yep.
But then he tries it on the outside of the foot, and it's just absolutely shocking. And when he's doing things like that, no wonder why people talk about him in the bracket the way they do. If you can't do the basics right, don't go and start. Like, there's nothing worse than watching someone who cannot do the basics try and do the flicks and tricks and try and be somebody that can. Players that do flicks and tricks can do the basics better than anybody else. That's why they're able to do the tricks and flicks. So don't start going doing these things if you can't even do the basics. It's absolutely ridiculous. And then in terms of defense, if he was just erratic all day, giving away free kicks, being dribbled, pass, just an awful game from Emerson. And look, a lot of the times as well, I looked at times when we were having the ball, I'm looking at him inside in the midfield, and I'm like, what are you doing? You're supposed to be the one out on the right-hand side. Create an option for him. It's just shocking, Jack.
Yeah, no, it is just, Dave, it was just bad in every ways. And I even said what Emerson is like, we know we are not going to get the best, performances going forward from him, but the least we ask is for him to be the defensive fullback that we bought. We want him to be that defensively solid guy that we did feel like we got into this club. And when he's not even showing that, that's when it's really worrisome. These are kind of his heat map. It's just really to reference, that he was, coming inside a lot more than maybe we probably would have liked him to. We want him just to keep the whip, and we want him just to be able to be that out ball in case, they're just swinging the ball around. We want him to just be an open player. But Emerson's positions were just all over the place. And sometimes he was coming inside when he didn't need to. Sometimes he wasn't keeping the width when he should have been. Just was a really bad display from him. Reguilón here. Also, Dave, 0 crosses and 0 passes into the penalty area. Only 2 tackles and interceptions combined. Also, like Emerson, 0 progressive carries, which is exactly what you said, Dave. Just knock it past him. Just try to get it, just try to get the ball up the pitch by yourself. Couldn't do that. Passes made under pressure, only 1. 0 key passes, and then actually lost the ball more times than Emerson did on the day as well. And I don't even think he had as many touches as Emerson did either.
Nah. Look, Look, his stats here are definitely a reflection on the game and how little possession or how
well said.
The fact that Brighton had more possession than us compared to recent weeks. But it's no excuses. At the end of the day, Jack, if you can't have the space to do your usual passing and stuff like that, instead of keep trying to persist with it and just passing it into them, just giving it back to them, just put the ball on the outside and use your pace. You've got pace to burn. You've got absolute pace to burn. We've seen it. We've seen how much ground he makes up on the overlapping runs when he's not with the ball. Put the ball by him and go. You're up against Tariq Lamptey. He's not big. He's not a big guy. You should be able to outpace him and outmuscle him down
Send
that.
him into the
Put
stands.
it by him and go. Make something happen. But instead, he kept on always looking to pass it inside, pass it inside, pass it inside, and just gave it back to Brighton so many times.
So many times. These are his average positions. And I think the big concern here for me is that, of course, the direction is going forward is off to the right. Look at how little he touched it in the opposition half.
Yeah.
Barely was in the opposition half. And in fact, was deep and camped in his own half. This was almost the average positions you feel like you'd be seeing of a Ben Davies or something like that, if you really ask me. And then also compared to Emerson, Emerson at least had the ball in the opposition half. I know he did nothing with it, but the fact that Reguilón in comparison is just all over the place in this area of the opposition half just showed that he wasn't keeping the width. We even looked at his average position, wasn't able to keep the width like we know he can, wasn't sitting high up the pitch like we know he does and we know he can. It just really was like in every way just a bad display from Reguilón. And I think that heat map, I think it was almost even worse than maybe the stats themselves, because you don't want Reguilón being pinned back this far. It's almost Reguilón becomes useless, you could say, if he's being pinned back that far. You want him to be that guy, that out ball going forward. You want him to be spreading the width with that pace of his. Moving on to Bentancur, last one here. 0 passes into the final third, 0 tackles and interceptions, 1 progressive carry the whole game. Passes made under pressure, only 4, 0 key passes again, and then lost the ball 9 times as well.
Look, I'm just going to keep it short and sweet on this guy, Jack. For me, I think he was carrying a knock. I think he was put out there and he wasn't fit enough to be out there. And I think, look, yeah, he knew he shouldn't be out there, and he went hiding.
Yeah, he went hiding. Absolutely, Dave. And I think he was just pedestrian the whole game. And if you even compare some of his stats to Højbjerg, because everybody just really did show that one player really showed up that day and the other one didn't. But it's not damning to Lolo. It's not damning to Bentancur. He's been the midfielder that we've wanted. He's been the midfielder that we've needed. He's put us in the position that we are now. The only reason we're even competing for top 4 in the first place is because of players like Bentancur. But it's just, you have to point it out, just a really poor display from the guy. And maybe those, injuries were really hurting him. Lessons learned, just to wrap up everything that we've kind of already said. There wasn't really a plan B, and the plan B was probably taken away from us. Even, the long ball approach, was taken away from us. They also stifled that. There was a lack of impact for many of the substitutes. The only one that really did have an impact was probably Bergwijn. Maybe, Dave, he would have been the one you would have put on first, I guess, in hindsight.
100%. I mean, you look at it, he had 5 minutes and he had our best chance of the game. Lucas Moore had half an hour and couldn't get control of the football.
Yeah.
Bring him on earlier. Next time, just bring on Bergwijn. I think everybody can agree here now that the first option off the bench has to be Bergwijn. He's the only one that has come on and had an impact. Since that Leicester game, and which Lucas Moore started, he was shite, and he's been shite off the bench every game since. Same as Harry Winks. I mean, I don't think I remember any impact that the guy has had too much off the bench, to be honest with you. So for me, it's you just got to bring Bergwijn on, Jack. And just as for the no plan B, just quickly, I think what we could have done is use that second half to press them higher up the field, put together an organised press. Because you look at our best chances, Jack, and we were speaking about this earlier. The best chances we created was from winning the ball higher up the field.
Yeah.
The two chances Højbjerg created.
Harry Kane's chance in the beginning of the game, and then Højbjerg's chance, with that beautiful Højbjerg Genius a down turn. I know what you're saying, Dave.
Yeah. All of our best chances came from pressing them higher up the pitch. And I thought maybe that's probably something that Conte could have missed. He could have instructed the players to go and press them higher up the pitch, because that's where we're getting our chances from. Look, it didn't happen, but maybe that's what I would have done as a plan B.
Yeah, I think that's probably a good suggestion. Another one, we missed Doherty. I think we probably look back at those stats from Emerson, the no progressive passes, the no passes into the penalty area, anything that has to do with forward direct play. I think Doherty would have at least contributed a bit more. But then again, to say that Doherty's some world beater, that he would have been able, to just, get the game by the scruff of the neck, I think is a bit of a stretch. But he certainly would have probably, provided a lot more. And maybe even the reason why Spurs were having such a tough time down the right is because when they know that it's going to be Emerson and not Doherty, it makes it easier for a team to predict what our tactics will look like. It makes it easier for a team to figure us out. When we have Doherty and Emerson to pick from, it makes it harder for a team to know which one we'll go for. And I think since we only have Emerson available, it makes us a whole lot more predictable. Midfield overwhelmed. Yes and no. I think we kind of said it yes, it was overwhelmed with the amount of personnel. They picked basically 7 midfielders, to play. Even the midfielders they had up top, Dave, were midfielders. Yeah. McAllister and Wepu are midfielders. You look at Trossard, a midfielder playing as a wingback. You look at Basuma, Pascal Gross, Caicedo, all midfielders. So they really did sort of overwhelm it with personnel. But I don't feel like they actually overwhelmed it with where they were positioning themselves. It's kind of a bit different to maybe Aston Villa. Aston Villa clogged up the middle, whereas maybe Brighton went about it a bit of a different way. So it's almost kind of like a myth I guess we might have said we kind of
There is-
debunked. Yeah, that game.
Sorry, the reason why I say midfield overwhelmed is if you look at teams that have played a 3-man midfield against us, United, Southampton, Wolves, now Brighton. It's not necessarily that we're being overwhelmed in the midfield. But if you take yourself back and look at all them games, what they've had is that extra man across the midfield. So they can recycle it from left to right. You know, they have that extra man in midfield to drop in. They can play out from the back. They can start playing through us. Whereas if you look at other teams, they haven't been able to play through us. But when teams put that extra man in midfield and they use it right, they can play through us because they always have that option at the base of midfield to pass it to go from left to right to pull the strings.
Yeah, absolutely, Dave. I think that was really well broken down there. Moving on to the next one here. Games you can't win, you don't lose. I think this was a beautiful quote by Conte, and that's exactly connecting back to the bottom due to super chat from the very beginning as well. If you can't win a game, if you're not playing well enough to win a game, you certainly should be able to play well enough to not lose a game. And I think that especially comes true, Dave, with teams like Brighton. Maybe you didn't play well enough on the day to beat Brighton, but you can't play poor enough to lose to them. That's what it is. You have to play well enough to get a result. You have to play well enough to get a point. And I think that's what maybe frustrated Conte more than not winning. I think what frustrated him more was not getting a point.
Look, when you look at the league table, I'm a big believer you should be beating everybody below you and trying to aim for a point off everybody above you. Now, if this was Liverpool, Chelsea, City, you can accept it. You say, look, one moment of pure class, it happens. But that wasn't a moment of pure class. That was self-destruct. That's what that was. We uncontested the header, we ball watched, and we just let them take the goal. And these teams below you, okay, if you have an off day, you get out there with the point. You do not lose these games, and it's that simple.
Just don't. You can't. Just can't lose these games.
No.
Giving the ball away too easily. We highlighted that with a lot of stats and everything, and I think we don't need to beat that, beat that drum any further. But that's it, everybody. Lots of work put into this one. Really do appreciate you guys tuning in and sticking by us for this one. A bit of a different time than usual. We want to honor, maybe what's going on outside of Spurs at this moment in time, but really do hope that you guys did enjoy this one. And we put in a bit of a different sort of effort into it. It's not like what we've been doing recently with the wins, just breaking down the goals, breaking down all the good stuff. We had to maybe swallow kind of our pride a bit here and break down what Spurs did wrong, break down the red flags, talk about what maybe we should learn from, kind of Brian C. Socrates styles, how can we learn from this sort of, defeat? But really do hope that you guys enjoyed it, and really do hope that you guys hit that like button on your way out as well.
Yeah, look, a massive thank you to everybody for tuning in today. Let us know in the comments below what you want to see more of, what you don't want to see more of in these match reviews. Let me know what you enjoy. Let us know your thoughts as well. Do you think me and Jack missed something? Do you think it was brilliant? If you think it was shite, just get in the comments and let us know, guys. But a massive thank you to you out there for tuning in. A massive thank you to Jack as well. A massive thank you to myself. Guys, that's it. We're going to let you go off and watch Liverpool and United. Liverpool have just gone one up, which is absolutely brilliant. So that's screw United. Absolutely loving life. Guys, like, subscribe, comment, and we'll see you all back here tomorrow. As always, come on, you Spurs. In Conte we trust.
Come on, you Spurs. In Conte we trust.